Chapter 930. 9 Nether Realm. Not long after Zhuoan and the Whitebrow Heavenly Sovereign left, a figure appeared in the sky with Zui Qingfeng. This person's hair and beard were all white, and he wore a long green and white robe. His face was dignified. Clear Void Valley's sect master, Qing Shuzi. I didn't expect such a person to come. Some sharp-eyed people below Yang City quickly recognized this white-haired old man. Xiaoyang Ba from the Xiaoyang family is also dead. Could it be that Zhuoan killed him? Qing Shuzi's gaze quickly fell on Xiaoyang Ba's corpse as he muttered with a frown. Sect master. Xiaoyang Ba wasn't killed by Zhuoan, but by a heavenly sovereign servant by his side. Zui Qingfeng, who was standing behind Qing Shuzi, suddenly said respectfully. Qing Shuzi's eyes narrowed as he replied with some surprise, "What did you say?" "That Zhuoan has a heavenly sovereign servant." "A heavenly sovereign expert?" Zui Qingfeng nodded. "He used the leaf to teleport nearly 1,000 miles away, but he didn't leave completely. Instead, he silently observed Zhuoan from afar. Naturally, he saw the scene of Xiaoyang Ba's death." Sect master. This Zhuoan's identity isn't ordinary. I'm afraid he's from the 9 Nether Realm. Should we continue to investigate this kid? Zui Qingfeng asked with some hesitation. After witnessing Zhuoan's terrifying strength and the Whitebrow Heavenly Sovereign beside him, Zui Qingfeng really didn't want to make an enemy out of Zhuoan. Otherwise, he wouldn't even know how he died. He was truly afraid of that Zhuoan. Someone from the 9 Nether Realm? I don't think that's possible. The 9 Nether Realm is the core of the Eastern Lands. That's the real world of the Eastern Lands. Why would anyone be willing to come to such a remote place like our Yangxian Empire? Didn't you say it before? That Zhuoan has a heavenly sovereign nascent soul. From the looks of it, this kid has a secret technique that allowed him to restore the physical body of a heavenly sovereign nascent soul. The price should be for the heavenly sovereign nascent soul to recognize him as its master. Qing Shuzi's eyes flashed with wisdom. He pointed out the crux of the matter with just one sentence. Zui Qingfeng felt that it made sense. What kind of place was the 9 Nether Realm? The martial artists there disdained to come to this remote corner. Whoosh! Suddenly, an endless amount of black fog surged over from the sky. Immediately, the black fog descended, forming an inverted funnel shape. Finally, a proud figure with black hair and black eyes appeared. Qing Shuzi. What about Zhuoan? The figure arrived in front of Qing Shu and questioned him rudely. That little bastard got away. Qing Shu coldly snorted and asked Zui Qingfeng to repeat what had just happened. Demon Daoist's face gradually darkened. You said that Mo Ying's limbs were cut off by Zhuoan? Demon Daoist coldly snorted. His gaze quickly locked onto a deep pit below. Inside the pit, Mo Ying's aura was dispirited. His limbs were broken, and he had fallen into a state of delirium. Demon Daoist came to Mo Ying's side and pointed his sword finger at the center of his forehead. A surge of origin energy surged into Mo Ying's body, causing the originally delirious Mo Ying to regain his consciousness. Even his dantian was crippled. During the process of injecting origin energy, Demon Daoist quickly discovered that Mo Ying's dantian had become extremely shriveled. It was obvious that he was completely crippled. At this moment, Demon Daoist's face was extremely ugly. If Mo Ying's limbs were only broken, he might have a way to restore them. But with his dantian crippled, even he was helpless. Palace Master, you must avenge me. That Zhuoan destroyed me and turned me into a complete cripple. You must avenge me. Mo Ying's face was ferocious as he roared. Demon Daoist took a deep breath. The coldness in his eyes became even more intense. He indifferently said, "Don't worry. I won't let that Zhuoan go. Mo Ying, you're already a cripple now. Living is also painful. Why don't I send you on your way?" After speaking, Demon Daoist pressed his right hand on Mo Ying's forehead. A surge of origin energy invaded Mo Ying's mind. Mo Ying struggled a few times before completely losing his breath. Looking at Demon Daoist's actions, Qing Shu and Zui Qingfeng both felt a chill. Demon Daoist's style of doing things was becoming more and more like a devil. Just because Mo Ying became a cripple, he didn't hesitate to kill him. Yang City is so big now. Finding a person is like finding a needle in a haystack. Demon Daoist arrived in front of Qing Shu and indifferently said. Qing Shu faintly smiled and said, "You don't need to worry about that. My Qing Shu Valley has a lot of disciples and most of the businesses in Yang City are bought by my Qing Shu Valley disciples. As long as I make an announcement in the valley and mobilize all the disciples in Yang City, that Zhuowen won't be able to escape. Unless he doesn't stay in the inn. Among the 5 superpowers, your Qing Shu Valley has the most disciples. You're really recruiting just about anyone. This is also your Qing Shu Valley's style." Demon Daoist's gaze was somewhat disdainful. Among the 5 superpowers, the Qing Shu Valley has the lowest requirement to recruit disciples. Therefore, they have the most disciples in the valley. Moreover, in order to expand their influence, the Qing Shu Valley recruited many nominal disciples. These nominal disciples didn't have the qualifications to enter the Qing Shu Valley. They only had the Qing Shu Valley's name. In Yang City, the Qing Shu Valley had a lot of nominal disciples. Moreover, many of them bought businesses and did business in Yang City. Because of the Qing Shu Valley's name, the businesses of these nominal disciples were extremely prosperous. It was because of the existence of these nominal disciples that the Qing Shu Valley was the most well-informed among the 5 superpowers. Even the most powerful royal family couldn't compare to the Qing Shu Valley in terms of information. Then hurry up and spread the news. If that Zhuowen leaves Yang City because of a misunderstanding, then it'll really be difficult for us to find him. Demon Daoist nodded his head and said in agreement. Qing Shu and Demon Daoist chatted for a while before leaving this place, leaving behind many speculations and discussions of Yang City's martial artists. The main character of their discussion was naturally Zhuowen, who had just displayed his invincible might. The main character of this incident, Zhuowen, had already quietly returned to the inn he was staying at. After discovering that there was no one following him outside the inn, Zhuowen locked the door and asked the White Brow Heavenly Sovereign, "White Brow, do you know about the 9 Netherworld realm?" The White Brow Heavenly Sovereign wasn't surprised by Zhuowen's question. After all, Xiaoyang Ba had already mentioned it before. It would be strange if Zhuowen didn't ask. "I've heard of the 9 Netherworld realm. However, I don't know much about it. Ziyang Tianzuan knows more about it than I do," the White Brow Heavenly Sovereign calmly said. Upon hearing this, Zhuowen flicked his finger and a ball of light appeared in the room. Within the ball of light was naturally Ziyang Tianzuan's nascent soul. "Greetings, Master." Ziyang Tianzuan respectfully cupped his hands towards Zhuowen. Soon after, his gaze landed on the White Brow Heavenly Sovereign beside Zhuowen as he asked somewhat uncertainly, "Your White Brow?" The White Brow Heavenly Sovereign smiled and said, "Master and Master Long have successfully helped me reconstruct my physical body. Congratulations." Ziyang Tianzuan somewhat enviously stared at the White Brow Heavenly Sovereign. He somewhat believed Zhuowen's promise to reconstruct his physical body. "You don't have to be envious. Once I gather enough materials, I'll get Xiao Hei to help you reconstruct your physical body." Zhuowen naturally saw the envy on Ziyang Tianzuan's face and chuckled. "Thank you, Master." Ziyang Tianzuan hurriedly bowed and continued, "I wonder why Master has summoned me." Zhuowen lightly knocked on the armrest with his right hand and said indifferently, "You should know about the 9 Netherworld realm, right? Can you tell me about the 9 Netherworld realm? Also, how did Emperor Qing plan to bring the 5 spots to the God Academy?" Ziyang Tianzuan was startled at first, but then he remembered that Zhuowen came from a lowly family, so it was understandable that he didn't know about this. Following Ziyang Tianzuan's narration, Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly, and he had a deeper understanding of the 9 Netherworld realm. The 9th Netherworld realm was the core area of the Eastern lands. It was said that it occupied 1/3 of the Eastern lands, while the remaining 2/3 were scattered with scattered forces. For example, the Qing Xian Empire and the Yang Xian Empire were members of these scattered forces. As the core area of the Eastern lands, the 9 Netherworld realm was filled with experts and forces. It was unknown how much more prosperous it was compared to other regions. It was said that there were saint experts in the 9 Netherworld realm. The 9 Netherworld realm, as its name implied, was divided into 9 regions. Each region had countless forces, and emperor-level experts could be seen everywhere. It could be said that an ordinary cultivator in the 9 Netherworld realm would be a top expert in the Qing Xian Empire. This was the difference between them. The 9 regions naturally had their own names. They were the Dragon Netherworld realm, the Divine Netherworld realm, the Martial Netherworld realm, the Flower Netherworld realm, the Desolate Netherworld realm, the Death Netherworld realm, the Killing Netherworld realm, the Demon Netherworld realm, and the Night Netherworld realm. These 9 regions were called the 9 Netherworld realm. It is said that the reason why the 9 Netherworld realm is divided like this is mainly because there is a saint in each region. The 9 Netherworld realms are also named after the saints in the Netherworld realm. At this point, Empyrean Zi Yang hesitated for a moment before continuing. The Dragon Serene realm is the territory of the Azure Dragon Main Hall, and the Main Hall's Hall Master, Long Sheng, is a renowned saint and extremely powerful. The Azure Dragon Main Hall is in the Dragon Netherworld realm? Hearing this, Zhuowen's pupils shrank. It seemed that the Dragon Netherworld realm was not a good place for him. He was a descendant of the Riker, and was the mortal enemy of the Blue Dragon Hall. In addition, Xiao Hei's character was not low. If the people of the Dragon Netherworld realm found out about his identity, he would definitely be hunted down and killed. Since the Blue Dragon Hall is in the 9 Netherworld realm, does that mean the Fine Gods Academy is also in there? Zhuowen asked again. Zhang Tianzuan nodded and said, the Fine Gods Academy is divided into the outer courtyard and the inner courtyard. The outer courtyard is not in the 9 Netherworld realm, but the mysterious inner courtyard is in the Divine Netherworld realm. It is said that the Dean of the inner courtyard is also a powerful saint, and is famous throughout the 9 Netherworld realm. Outer courtyard and inner courtyard. Zhuowen muttered in a low voice. He had heard about the outer courtyard from Moyan Wushang. Moyan Wushang's identity was not ordinary, and seemed to have some relationship with the upper echelons of the outer courtyard. The outer courtyard that Moyan Wushang mentioned should be the outer courtyard of the Fine Gods Academy. In other words, the entrance exam this time is to enter the outer courtyard of the Fine Gods Academy? Zhuowen asked seriously. Chapter 931. Replace then. How does the Qing Xian Empire send the geniuses participating in the entrance exam to the outer court of the Jioshan Academy? Zhuowen asked curiously. Master, there are actually many forces outside the 9 Netherworld realm that cooperate with the outer court of the Jioshan Academy. For example, the Qing Xian Empire has a teleportation array that leads to the vicinity of the outer court. Furthermore, only the Qing Emperor of the Qing Xian Empire knows how to activate the teleportation array. Therefore, only the Emperor of the Empire has the means to bring you to the outer court. In fact, it's the same in the Yang Xian Empire. If you want to go to the outer court, you can only ask the Flame Emperor to bring you there, Zhang Tianzuan said respectfully. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and muttered, this matter is indeed related to the Flame Emperor. However, I'm not from the Yang Xian Empire. I'm afraid the Flame Emperor won't bring me to the outer court, right? Kid. Actually, there's a way that can allow you to easily obtain a slot to the outer court. Xiao Hei appeared in Zhuowen's sea of consciousness and floated in front of Zhuowen with her hands on her hips. Greetings, Master Long. When Xiao Hei appeared, Zhang Tianzuan and the white-brow Heavenly Master both revealed flattering smiles and fawning expressions. Back when they were in the spirit ring, they had been taught a lesson by Xiao Hei. Now that they saw Xiao Hei, they were like mice that had seen a cat. What method? Zhuowen asked. Xiao Hei's eyes flickered and said, didn't you cripple the demon shadow? Moreover, the demon shadow is one of the 5 people participating in the entrance exam from the Yang Xian Empire. You mean you want me to replace the demon shadow? Zhuowen's eyes brightened as he asked. Yes. You can cooperate with the demon Dao and ask him to give the demon shadow slot to you, Xiao Hei said with a mischievous smile. However, Zhuowen shook his head and said, I'm afraid it won't be that easy. The demon shadow was crippled by me. The demon Dao probably hates me to the core. Why would he give the demon shadow slot to me? Brat. If you currently have the protection of 5 heavenly sovereigns, apart from the Flame Emperor, who would dare to offend you in Yang City? Even Master Demon would have to yield, Xiao Hei said indifferently. Zhuowen nodded. However, If he wanted to completely reconstruct the bodies of the other 4 Empyreans, he would need an enormous amount of materials. With Zhuowen's current wealth, it would be difficult to accomplish. Thinking of this, Zhuowen took out a few spirit rings from his bosom. These spirit rings were taken from Xiaoyang Zhuo, Mo Ying, and Xiaoyang Ba. Moreover, he had already checked the contents of these 3 spirit rings. Although there were many spirit stones inside, according to his estimation, they were only enough to reconstruct another body. Xiaoyang Ba is the ancestor of the Xiaoyang family. I'm afraid that he controls most of the Xiaoyang family's assets. Little brat, take a look inside Xiaoyang Ba's spirit ring and see if there's anything like a key. Xiao He suddenly suggested. Nodding his head, Zhuowen carefully rummaged through Xiaoyang Ba's spirit ring. Soon, he noticed that in the corner of the spirit ring, there was a rusty iron key. Could it be this key? Looking at the rusty iron key in his palm, Zhuowen's mouth twitched as he muttered to himself. It's possible. You can try going to the Xiaoyang family. Xiao He chuckled. Then I'll go and try. With a soft sigh, Zhuowen put away the metal key, opened the door, and quietly left the inn. The white-brow Empyrean was left behind by Zhuo when in the inn. After all, if the 2 of them entered the Xiaoyang family together, they would be too big of a target. It would not be beneficial for Zhuowen to infiltrate. As night slowly descended, the Xiaoyang family in Yang City was currently in a state of chaos. News of Xiaoyang Ba and Xiaoyang Zhuo's deaths had already spread throughout Yang City. Naturally, the Xiaoyang family had also heard about it. Xiaoyang Zhuo was the patriarch of the Xiaoyang family, and Xiaoyang Ba was the ancestor of the Xiaoyang family. The 2 of them were the core figures of the Xiaoyang family and also the highest leaders. However, these 2 important figures had actually died at the same time. Furthermore, Xiaoyang Qinglin and Xiaoyang Piyu, the 2 geniuses of the Xiaoyang family, had also died. In an instant, the originally prosperous Xiaoyang family began to fall into chaos. The guards that were originally patrolling the Xiaoyang family also stopped patrolling. Everyone in the Xiaoyang family was in a state of panic. Right now, the Xiaoyang family was like a fishing net full of holes. Zhuowen did not have to spend much effort to enter the Xiaoyang family. After capturing a few guards and interrogating them about the location of Xiaoyang Ba's loft, Zhuowen arrived in front of a luxurious building without any obstructions. Xiaoyang Ba's loft was more like a palace than a loft. There were pavilions, terraces, and pavilions everywhere. It occupied a very large area. Guards and maids were everywhere in the corridors between the pavilions. However, the guards and maids inside seemed to be in a state of panic. They had all heard rumors about Xiaoyang Ba. They really could not imagine that such a terrifying person like Xiaoyang Ba would actually die. This matter had a huge impact on the Xiaoyang family. Who is it? A loud shout was heard. One of the guards in the corridor discovered Zhuowen's figure and pointed his spear at Zhuowen. His eyes were filled with vigilance. Zhuowen no longer concealed his figure. He waved his right hand and a terrifying astral wind swept out. The guard was caught off guard and was sent flying. He crashed into a pillar and spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were filled with fear. The young man in front of him was terrifying. With just a wave of his hand, he was sent flying. He knew that this young man was not someone he could contend against. Whoosh! Zhuowen lifted the guard up and coldly said, "Take me to Xiaoyang Ba's loft or die. Sir, please spare me. This lowly one will take you there. I only beg you not to kill me," the guard said while trembling. "As long as you take me there, I won't kill you," Zhuowen said indifferently. The guard was submissive and did not dare to disobey Zhuowen. He led Zhuowen to Xiaoyang Ba's loft. Along the way, they encountered other guards, but they were unable to stop Zhuowen. Many of them were even killed by Zhuowen. The guard who led the way for Zhuowen became more and more shocked. He had a new understanding of the strength of the young man behind him. He no longer dared to reveal some of the thoughts in his heart. Instead, he calmly led the way for Zhuowen. Xiaoyang Ba's loft was located at the highest point of the palace-like building. After the guard led Zhuowen there, he said with a trembling voice, "Sir, this is the patriarch's loft. Do you think I am the one?" Scram! Zhuowen said indifferently. The guard felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders, and he hurriedly left the place in a dejected manner. I wonder if Xiaoyang Ba placed the Xiaoyang family's wealth in his loft. As he spoke, Zhuowen stepped into the loft. He had to admit that Xiaoyang Ba really knew how to enjoy life. The loft was extremely luxurious, much more so than the palaces in his previous life. The loft was filled with thick stone pillars that were inlaid with dazzling luminous pearls. As he went deeper into the loft, a few coquettish laughter suddenly entered Zhuowen's ears. There are women. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and looked ahead. There were layers of gauze covering the area. With Zhuowen's eyesight, he could naturally see that behind the gauze was an enormous round bed. On the bed, there were 3 young women with voluptuous figures, covered by gauze. They were frolicking inside. This Xiaoyang Ba really knows how to enjoy life. With a cold smile, Zhuowen walked straight to the bed in front of him. With a wave of his right hand, the gauze in front of him shattered, revealing the bed. Patriarch, you're so naughty. Why did you only come back now? The 3 young women laughed coquettishly. Naturally, they also noticed the abnormality of the gauze. Their crisp voices, like those of orioles, were extremely charming. However, when the 3 young women saw that the one who appeared in front of them was not Xiaoyang Ba, but a young man with cold eyes, they were first startled, then they all fell silent. Who are you? Among the 3 young women, the one with the most revealing clothes, the oldest one pointed at Zhuowen and shouted, "Tell me where Xiaoyang Ba's personal storage is." The 3 young women in front of him were good-looking and had enchanting figures. Now that they were wearing revealing clothes, if an ordinary man saw this scene, his blood would rush to his head. Although Zhuowen felt a little strange, his eyes were still cold. He was not moved by the 3 young women. Zhuowen knew that these 3 young women were Xiaoyang Ba's concubines, so they must know a lot about Xiaoyang Ba's private matters. You dare to trespass into the patriarch's loft? Are you looking for death? If the patriarch comes back, you'll definitely die, the young woman said coldly. Zhuowen laughed and said, Xiaoyang Ba is already dead. How can he settle the score with me? Now, I'll give you 3 a chance. If you tell me where Xiaoyang Ba's personal storage is, I'll spare your lives and set you free. Otherwise, you'll die. At this point, a substantial killing intent emitted from Zhuowen's eyes, causing the 3 young women to tremble and turn pale. The patriarch is dead. The 3 young women cried out in alarm and trembled. I'll count to 3. If you don't tell me, then all of you will die, Zhuowen said coldly. The oldest young woman gritted her teeth and said, I'll take you there, but I beg you not to kill us. The 3 young women were only ordinary martial artists. They had only obtained Xiaoyang Ba's favor because of their outstanding looks, so they had no power to resist Zhuowen's threat. Take me there. Zhuowen nodded and said. Then you come with me. The young woman got up and led Zhuowen to the other side of the loft. Zhuowen slowly followed behind the young woman. Whether it was intentional or not, the young woman standing in front of him did not wear a coat. She was still wearing a thin gauze dress. Her snow-white skin was faintly discernible under the gauze, which had a different kind of seduction. Zhuowen didn't care about this woman's actions or intentions. Instead, he silently followed behind her without making a sound. We're here. There's a secret door behind this hidden compartment. If you want to go in, you must have the patriarch's key. Otherwise, you can't go in at all. Chapter 932. Plunder. Zhuowen nodded. With a flick of his finger, he took out the rusty key from his spirit ring and inserted it into the lock. With a slight twist, the sound of gears rotating could be heard, and the secret door in front of him was completely opened. The woman looked at the key in Zhuowen's hand, and her beautiful eyes were filled with shock. This key was the key to Xiaoyang Ba's warehouse. This key had always been kept by Xiaoyang Ba. Even as Xiaoyang Ba's beloved concubine, She only had the chance to see it once in a while. But now, this extremely important key had appeared in the hands of this young man in front of her. It was obvious that Xiaoyang Ba was most likely dead. Thinking of this, the woman treated Zhuowen with even more respect. After all, the person in front of her could be the powerful existence that killed Xiaoyang Ba. She didn't dare to offend him. Xiaoyang Ba is dead. You and your two sisters are free now. You can leave the Xiaoyang family on your own. Also, don't talk about this place. Otherwise, I won't show you any mercy. Zhuowen said to the woman beside him and entered the secret door. In fact, with Zhuowen's current strength, he wasn't afraid of other people from the Xiaoyang family breaking in. This sentence was only a warning. Moreover, Zhuowen didn't want to cause any more trouble. Looking at Zhuowen's indifferent departure, the woman's beautiful eyes dimmed. Looking at her hot clothes and Zhuowen's cold attitude, she began to doubt her own charm. This was a large warehouse. In the warehouse, there were actually piles of crystal-clear spiritual stones. The entire warehouse was filled with spiritual energy. Other than spiritual stones, there were many spiritual treasures in the warehouse. However, most of these spiritual treasures were earth-rank spiritual treasures. There were only a few heaven-rank spiritual treasures. This Xiaoyang family's foundation is pretty good. They actually have so many spirit stones. There are even high-grade spirit stones among them. Blackie appeared on Zhuowen's shoulder. Its small eyes rolled as it spoke. This time, I'm rich. Zhuowen's eyes lit up. With a wave of his right hand, he collected all the spirit stones in the warehouse into his spirit ring. After about half an incense stick's worth of time, Zhuowen had basically moved all the spirit stones in this huge warehouse. What was worth noting was that Zhuowen's spirit ring was actually unable to store all the spirit stones in the warehouse, so he had to use Xiaoyang Ba's spirit ring. 2 spirit rings were barely able to store all the spirit stones in the warehouse, and the number of spirit stones was extremely shocking. Even Zhuowen was a little surprised. 100,000 high-grade spirit stones, 1 million mid-grade spirit stones, and 5 million low-grade spirit stones. Good heavens, the inventory is actually so abundant. After checking the number of spirit stones in the spirit ring, Zhuowen and Xiao He were stunned for a moment. Soon after, ecstasy appeared on their faces. Brat! Other than the spirit stones, don't let go of the spirit treasures in here. Although these spirit treasures are not of a high grade, if you don't use them, you can leave them for your Zhuo family's disciples. Even if they are not of a high grade, you can still sell them for spirit stones. Xiao He pointed at the various spirit treasures placed around the warehouse with a sly smile on his face. Zhuowen nodded. After experiencing several crises in the Zhuo family, Zhuowen also planned to develop the Zhuo family. When the Zhuo family had reached a certain level of strength, he would change Zhuowen into a Riker, and recreate the glory of the Riker from 10,000 years ago. However, Zhuowen also knew that if he wanted to develop the Zhuo family into a powerful force in the Eastern Land, it was not something that could be done overnight. This road had to be walked step by step. Thinking of this, Zhuowen worked even harder to collect the remaining spiritual treasures, spiritual herbs, and other resources in the warehouse. Zhuowen put them all into the spiritual ring. In just a moment, the 3 spiritual rings were filled. After he was done, Zhuowen left Xiaoyang Ba's palace in satisfaction. However, just as he stepped out of the palace, Zhuowen keenly sensed that there were many figures with powerful auras surrounding the Xiaoyang clan. These figures were faintly divided into 3 groups. They were wary of each other and entered the Xiaoyang clan from 3 different directions. Ah! Immediately, shrill screams rang out from the Xiaoyang clan. Then, flames rose around the Xiaoyang clan. Someone was actually setting a fire in the night. Whoosh! Whoosh! Figures with powerful auras surged in the night sky and entered the Xiaoyang family like ghosts. Every time they flickered, they would take away a warrior of the Xiaoyang family. The Xiaoyang family, which was originally in a state of panic because of the death of Xiaoyang Ba and Xiaoyang Zhuo, was now in complete chaos. The members of the Xiaoyang family did not expect that at this critical juncture, someone would take the opportunity to invade their family. A total of 3 forces entered the Xiaoyang family. I'm afraid that these 3 forces should be the other 3 major families in Yang City. The Xiaoyang family is finished. I'm afraid that this time, they will be completely annihilated. Xiao He gloated. Zhuowen shrugged. Yang City was not a good place to begin with. Moreover, the four major families were in a competitive relationship. Once one of them declined, the other three families would definitely join forces to suppress it. Now that the Xiaoyang family had offended Zhuowen, not only were all the high-ranking warriors of the family killed, but even key figures like the family head and ancestor were also killed. It was impossible for the other three families to not take action. If Xiaoyang Ba had not died, the other three families would not have taken action so easily. Unfortunately, Xiaoyang Ba was dead. Therefore, the other three families naturally did not have any scruples. Thinking of this, Zhuowen shook his head. There was no pity in his heart. After all of this was the Xiaoyang family's own fault. Now that they were annihilated, it was retribution. Swoosh, swoosh. Just as Zhuowen was about to leave, more than a dozen figures surrounded Zhuowen. Numerous pairs of sharp eyes stared fixedly at Zhuowen. In front of these dozen figures, a young man with a refined smile on his lips stared indifferently at Zhuowen. This young man was no stranger to Zhuowen. It was actually Wu Zongxing of the Wu clan who had bought the Star's sword from his stall when he had set up a stall in Yang City. However, Zhuowen had set up the stall in disguise. Therefore, Wu Zongxing did not recognize Zhuowen. "Brother, I'm sorry. Where do you want to go?" Wu Zongxing said with a faint smile. Zhuowen's lips curled up. He spread out his hands and said, "Brother Wu, I am not from the Xiaoyang family. If it is convenient, let me go. I don't want to hurt the relationship between the Wu clan and me." Wu Zongxing raised his eyebrows. He was somewhat surprised by the attitude of this young man in front of him. He was surrounded by more than a dozen people and could still be so calm. This young man was not ordinary. "Brother, you are very confident. Our strength is not ordinary. Brother, do you think you can escape from us?" Wu Zongxing said in a somewhat mocking tone. "Escape?" Zhuowen shook his head and continued, "I am afraid that I will accidentally kill all of them. At that time, I am afraid that Brother Wu will lose face." Wu Zongxing's face stiffened. He stared sharply at Zhuowen. This young man in front of him was very arrogant. He actually dared to say such big words. What an arrogant person. You actually dare to say that you will kill all of us. I think that you really don't know how the word death is written. A burly man coldly snorted. He was so angry that his hair stood on end. His temper was irritable. He actually took the initiative to send a palm strike towards Zhuowen. He wanted to completely kill the latter. Wu Zongxing did not stop him. This burly man was an expert from the Wu clan. His cultivation was at the ultimate ninth wheel emperor stage and he was quite famous in Yang City. Wu Zongxing was also somewhat displeased by the arrogant words of the young man in front of him. Therefore, he did not stop the burly man. Zhuowen coldly smiled. His right hand made a grabbing motion in the air. The burly man was shocked to discover that his attack had collapsed. What was even more shocking was that a strange suction force came from below, causing him to involuntarily fall down. With a stomp of his foot, Zhuowen's right hand grabbed the burly man's arm. With a casual squeeze, the sound of bones cracking could be heard. The burly man's right arm was instantly dislocated. Zhuowen then flung his right hand, causing the burly man to fall flat on his face. With a foot on the burly man's body, Zhuowen indifferently said to Wu Zongxing, "This is my warning. If you still dare to obstruct or provoke me, I will kill you." As the word kill was uttered, an extremely terrifying aura gushed out from Zhuowen's body. The ground beneath his feet instantly crumbled and debris floated up. A monstrous killing intent leaked out from Zhuowen's eyes, causing Wu Zongxing and the others to feel a chill in their hearts. This young man in front of them was definitely not joking. If they really dared to act recklessly, this person would definitely not be merciful. Moreover, he had the strength to do so. "Brother, this is just a misunderstanding. Since you are not a member of the Xiaoyang family, then brother, please feel free to leave. We will not stop you." Wu Zongxing smiled politely. Zhuowen gave Wu Zongxing a deep look. With a stomp of his foot, 3 pairs of lightning wings grew out from his back. He turned into a bolt of lightning and brushed past Wu Zongxing, instantly disappearing into the horizon. This person is not old, but his strength is actually so terrifying. I'm afraid that his cultivation is at least in the Xuanzuan realm. As soon as Zhuowen left, the more than 10 people behind Wu Zongxing all let out a light sigh of relief. Each of their faces revealed a look of shock. As for the burly man who was stepped on by Zhuowen, he returned to the group with an ashamed look on his face. He did not dare to speak anymore. Just now, he had lost all his face. How could he still have the face to speak? 3 pairs of lightning wings? I heard that in the sky above the Ruan family, Xiaoyang Qinglin and Xiaoyang Zue of the Xiaoyang family were killed by a young man named Zhuowen. Moreover, it is said that Zhuowen also possesses a secret technique that can give birth to 3 pairs of lightning wings. Wu Zongxing's eyes flickered. He deeply looked at the back of Zhuowen as he muttered in a low voice. His voice was not loud, but the more than 10 people around him heard it clearly. Instantly, the atmosphere between them became extremely quiet. Gulp. The sound of swallowing saliva slowly rang out. The one who made this sound was the burly man who had provoked Zhuowen earlier. They were not unfamiliar with the name Zhuowen. The number 1 genius of the Xiaoyang family, Xiaoyang Qinglin, and the head of the family, Xiaoyang Zue, had both died at the hands of Zhuowen. Moreover, the ancestor of the Xiaoyang family, Xiaoyang Ba, had also died because of Zhuowen. This was because Zhuowen had a terrifyingly powerful heavenly sovereign expert by his side. It was said that this heavenly sovereign expert was also Zhuowen's servant. Chapter 933. 5 great heavenly sovereign slaves. The next day, a major piece of news spread throughout Yang City. This news was related to the Xiaoyang aristocratic family. It was said that the Xiaoyang aristocratic family had been completely annihilated last night and their mansion had basically been plundered. This news was extremely sensational in Yang City. Regardless of whether it was the streets or the taverns, most of the practitioners were discussing this news regarding the annihilation of the Xiaoyang aristocratic family. Most of their faces were filled with shock. The Xiaoyang aristocratic family had stood tall in Yang City for nearly 100 years. Such an old and powerful family had actually been completely eradicated overnight. No one would be able to believe such a thing. Once this news was released, everyone's target was the mysterious young man, Zhuowen. Many of the practitioners in Yang City had clearly witnessed yesterday's great battle. Not only had the mysterious youth called Zhuowen single-handedly taken on many of the upper echelon practitioners of the Xiaoyang aristocratic family, he had also killed them one by one. Even the family head, Xiaoyang Zue, had been killed. What was even more shocking was that this youth actually had a heavenly sovereign slave by his side. The Xiaoyang aristocratic family's old ancestor, Xiaoyang Ba, had originally hurriedly rushed over to denounce Zhuowen and even wanted to deal with him. However, he had been killed by Zhuowen's heavenly sovereign slave. In a short period of time, the core members of the Xiaoyang aristocratic family had all been killed because of Zhuowen alone. The decline of the Xiaoyang aristocratic family was only a matter of time. However, the speed at which the Xiaoyang aristocratic family was annihilated had far exceeded everyone's expectations. In addition, the core members of the Xiaoyang aristocratic family had all been killed because of Zhuowen. It was obvious that the faction behind Zhuowen was the one that had destroyed the Xiaoyang aristocratic family. Therefore, as such rumors spread, the expressions of many of the practitioners in Yang City changed when they talked about Zhuowen. In particular, they all appeared very cautious when they mentioned Zhuowen's name. After walking out of the tavern, Zhuowen discovered that all the practitioners in every corner of Yang City were actually discussing him. Some of their guesses were even more outrageous. They actually described Zhuowen as an incomparably evil demon who had single-handedly annihilated the Xiaoyang aristocratic family. With regards to these extremely unreliable guesses, Zhuowen could only shake his head and dismiss them with a smile. If these practitioners knew that the youth who had walked past them was the main character of their heated discussion, who knew what they would feel in their hearts? Kid. Someone seems to be following you. Xiao Xiao of other family's voice suddenly sounded in Zhuowen's mind. Zhuowen nodded. With his enormous perception, He had long since discovered that he was being followed. Moreover, there was more than one person following him. This was because he had discovered that there were faintly discernible gazes being cast at him from all directions. However, a family of family aristocratic family was a family of family family of family of family of family of a family of family 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 of family aristocratic family family sect sect family of family of family of family of family sect family of family clan clan family clan of Lin family of family. Humph. Let's see what they can do to me after I reconstruct the physical bodies of the 5 great Tianzuans. After secretly saying this in his heart, Zhuowen arrived at the entrance of a remote alleyway. Soon after, he transformed into a shadow and disappeared from the alleyway. The several people who were originally watching Zhuowen walked out from different corners and also entered the alleyway. Soon after, these people once again appeared at the entrance of the alleyway. Their expressions were extremely ugly. This was because the moment Zhuowen entered the alleyway, it was as if he had evaporated from the face of the earth. On the bustling street, a sickly-looking youth with a sallow complexion strolled among the crowd. Although this person walked in an unconcerned manner, he would always stop for a while when he passed by some stalls. After haggling with the stall owner, he would buy a considerable amount of materials from the stall owner. Among these materials, there was no lack of precious and expensive materials. This person's actions attracted the attention of several practitioners, who whispered to each other as to why this person was buying so many materials. This waxen-faced youth was Zhuowen, who had changed his appearance. He knew that the Clear Void Valley had planted quite a few spies in Yang City. Therefore, after evading the pursuit of those people from before, Zhuowen had changed his appearance. Last night, Zhuowen had just taken a lot of spirit stones from the Shaoyang aristocratic family's warehouse. Therefore, he was extremely wealthy. Therefore, under Xiao Hei's guidance, he bought all of the materials needed to reconstruct the physical body. These materials cost Zhuowen more than 100,000 middle-tier spirit stones. However, compared to the millions of spirit stones he had, these spirit stones were merely a drop in the ocean. After collecting the materials, Zhuowen returned to the inn. After opening the door, Zhuowen let Xiao Hei out and said, "Xiao Hei, I'll have to trouble you this time." Xiao Hei nodded and said, "Take out the nascent souls of Ziyang Tianzuan and the other 3, as well as all of the materials we bought today." Upon hearing this, Zhuowen flicked his finger and released Ziyang Tianzuan, Guanghan Heavenly Sovereign, Shiyu Heavenly Sovereign and Huangjiao Heavenly Sovereign from his spirit ring. The materials he bought today were piled up in a corner of the room like a small mountain. I'm afraid that it will take a month to reconstruct the physical bodies of these 4. You and White Brow must remember to stand guard for me. Xiao Hei glanced at Zhuowen and White Brow, and her voice became extremely serious. Zhuowen and White Brow naturally did not dare to be negligent. Ziyang Tianzuan and the other 3 also knew that Xiao Hei was preparing to reconstruct their physical bodies. They were all overjoyed and excited. Being unable to do anything while in the nascent soul state was not a pleasant feeling. "Then let's begin." As she spoke, strands of dark energy surged out of Xiao Hei's body. The materials piled up in the corner of the room surged out one after another. Then, following the dark energy, they enveloped the nascent souls of Ziyang Tianzuan and the other 3. Not long after, the nascent souls of Ziyang Tianzuan and the other 3 were already submerged by the dark energy and turned into 4 huge black eggs. This scene was almost exactly the same as when White Brow's body was reconstructed. Zhuowen and White Brow silently looked at the 4 huge eggs in the room. They did not disturb Xiao Hei. Time flew by, and a month passed very quickly. Finally, on this day, the 4 giant eggs in the room finally showed signs of movement. Crack! The first huge black egg cracked open, and a graceful body appeared before everyone's eyes. The first one to come out was Heavenly Venerable Shiyu. At this moment, Heavenly Venerable Shiyu's body was naked, and she seemed a little shy. She used the black eggshell to cover the important parts. Zhuowen flicked his finger and threw a palace uniform to Heavenly Venerable Shiyu. Then, he waved his right hand and covered the small space where Heavenly Venerable Shiyu was, making it easier for her to change. Not long after, Heavenly Venerable Shiyu walked out in her palace uniform. Although Heavenly Venerable Shiyu was not extremely beautiful, Her somewhat round face was quite pleasing to the eye. In particular, the blush on her cheeks added a hint of charm to her temperament, which made Zhuowen and White Brow's eyes light up. Shiyu greets master. Heavenly Venerable Shiyu came in front of Zhuowen and bowed. There was a hint of ripples in her eyes. However, Zhuowen only nodded slightly and said, "Stand behind me first. The other three should be done soon." Heavenly Venerable Shiyu's beautiful eyes flashed with a hint of resentment when she saw Zhuowen's attitude. She nodded and obediently stood behind Zhuowen. Her pair of clear eyes stared at the 3 huge eggs in the room. Crack, crack. Another 2 eggshells cracked, and Heavenly Venerable Huang Jiao and Heavenly Venerable Guanghan walked out of the huge eggs at the same time. Both of them had a trace of confusion on their faces. After putting on their clothes, they stood respectfully beside Zhuowen, waiting for Xiang Tianzuan to hatch. Xiang Tianzuan was the strongest among the 5 of them. At the same time, he was also the most talented. If Xiang Tianzuan hadn't been killed by Zhuowen, he might have successfully broken through to the Emperor realm in a few years. Zhuowen was also looking forward to the birth of Xiang Tianzuan. After all, he was an expert at the peak of the Heavenly Venerable realm. If there were some opportunities, there was a high chance that he could break through to the Emperor realm. Zhuowen had to pay attention to him. Crack. Finally, the last huge black egg cracked, and a purple light surged out of it. Then, a young man with a Xiang tattoo on his back slowly walked out. After putting on the clothes that Zhuowen handed to him, Xiang Tianzuan bowed slightly to Zhuowen and Xiao He. His attitude was respectful and grateful. Good. Now that the 5 of you are here, it's time to meet Demon Dao and Qing Shu. As he looked at the 5 great heavenly sovereigns behind him, Zhuowen's heart was filled with pride. With these 5 great heavenly sovereigns in addition to his own terrifying strength, there was no one in Yang City who could stop him other than the royal family's Yang Emperor. Boom. After saying that, Zhuowen stomped his foot and broke through the roof of the inn. He rose into the sky and looked down at the countless cultivators below. He shouted, "Qing Shu, Demon Dao. Zhuowen is here. Get out here." The thunderous voice exploded in the sky above Yang City, spreading throughout the entire Yang City. What's going on? Someone actually asked Qing Shu and Demon Dao to get out here. Did I hear wrongly? It's Zhuowen, the mysterious young man who destroyed the Shaoyang family a month ago. He's so arrogant. He actually dared to openly provoke Qing Shu and Demon Dao. Is he courting death? An uproar spread in every corner of Yang City. Soon after, all the cultivators' gazes gathered on Zhuowen's body in the sky. Their gazes were filled with a strange look. What kind of figures were Qing Shu and Demon Dao? To think that this brat dared to provoke them in such a manner. Did water enter his brain? Although Zhuowen had destroyed the upper echelons of the Shaoyang family, which was enough to shake Yang City and let many people know that this brat was not simple, Qing Shu and Demon Dao were not people that Shaoyang Ba could compare to. They were the true giants of Yang City and had been famous heavenly venerables for a long time. Zhuowen dared to make such a big fuss. If he was not courting death, then what was? In a pavilion in the middle of a lake in Yang City, 2 figures were slowly playing chess. Of the 2, one had an immortal-like demonic aura, while the other had a surging demonic aura. They looked so out of place. What a great move. Besieging Wei to rescue Zhao. Looks like brother Demon Dao's chess skills are not much weaker than his cultivation. The immortal-like elder laughed. Qing Shu, don't keep me in suspense. It's already been a month. Could it be that your Qing Shu Valley still hasn't found Zhuowen? Demon Dao coldly snorted and said in an indifferent voice. Qing Shu's gaze hardened. He shook his head and said, Zhuowen is not simple. I'm afraid that he has a powerful concealment technique. It will be very difficult to find him. I'm afraid that brat has already escaped from Yang City, Demon Dao said without any trace of politeness. Qing Shu, Demon Dao. Zhuowen is here. Get out here. Chapter 934. The deterrents of the 5 heavenly sovereigns. Qing Shu and Demon Dao both stood up at the same time and raised their heads slightly. They both noticed Zhuowen, who had risen to the sky. Zhuowen actually came out to seek death. Shu narrowed his eyes and asked doubtfully. Logically speaking, with two heavenly sovereigns here, Zhuowen should have dodged in time. Instead, he took the initiative to provoke them, which really puzzled Shu. Since this kid wants to die, I'll fulfill his wish. A surge of demonic aura gushed out as Demon Dao took a step forward and turned into a black shadow that flew towards Zhuowen. Shu's eyes flickered as he followed closely behind. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Shu and Demon Dao stopped side by side a few dozen meters in front of Zhuowen. Their eyes flickered with a cold light. You've got guts to provoke us in public. Before I kill you, I want to ask you, were you the one who crippled Mo Ying? Demon Dao said with surging killing intent with his hands behind his back. Zhuowen was as calm as water as he said, he's just a piece of trash. Is it wrong to cripple him? The moment these words came out, Demon Daoist was stunned. The killing intent in his eyes surged even more violently. This Zhuowen was truly audacious. He actually dared to call the #1 genius of the Celestial Peak Devil Palace, Missouri Ying, trash in front of him. The appearance of Shu and Demon Dao immediately attracted the attention of all the cultivators below. They really came. What kind of status does this Zhuowen have? With just a shout, Demon Daoist and Shu, these two magnates actually came for him. I'm afraid it's because of the previous battle. It's said that the #1 genius of Heaven Peak Devil Palace, Missouri Ying, was completely crippled by this Zhuowen. Also, Zui Qingfeng was beaten to the point of fleeing. These two should be here for revenge. Everyone in Yang City lifted their heads to look at the distant confrontation between Zhuowen, Shuzi, and Demon Daozi as they discussed animatedly. Although Zhuowen had displayed his invincible might back then and even had the support of a heavenly sovereign servant, it was only natural that he would be able to do so. However, Master Demon and Master Shu were both Empyrean realm martial artists. Moreover, they weren't ordinary Empyrean realm martial artists. So what if this Zhuowen had an Empyrean servant behind him? If Shu and Demon Daoist were to join forces, Zhuowen's fate would be bleak. Therefore, the majority of the people looked at Zhuowen with a trace of pity. This kid was definitely going to be unlucky. Where is your Empyrean servant? Hurry up and let me out. Otherwise, I'll kill you right away. Master Demon stomped his foot and a terrifying demonic aura gushed out. Dark clouds gathered above his head. These dark clouds slowly descended and turned into a spiral behind Master Demon. It looked extremely strange. Oh, you want my Empyrean servant to come out? A strange smile appeared on Zhuowen's face. Master Demon clasped his hands behind his back, his eyes filled with arrogance. He entered the Dao through the demonic path and possessed the combat strength of a powerhouse. Although his cultivation was only at the initial stage of the Empyrean realm, his strength was comparable to a peak Empyrean. Even Shuzi wasn't his match. Thus, when facing an ordinary Empyrean martial artist, Master Demon Daoist didn't fear him at all. As long as he could tie down Zhuowen's Empyrean servant, Master Demon Daoist would be able to capture this brat. At that time, all of Zhuowen's benefits would be equally divided between the two of them. In that case, let them come out, Zhuowen said indifferently as he waved his right hand. Immediately, 5 terrifying auras soared into the sky from the inn below. When Zhuowen said this, Shuzi already had a bad premonition. This was because Zhuowen was talking about them and not him. From the information from the last battle, this Zhuowen clearly only had one Empyrean servant by his side, but now he was using them. Shuzi thought about how Zhuowen had suddenly gone crazy and taken the initiative to provoke the two of them. The ominous feeling in his heart became even stronger. It wasn't until 5 terrifying auras erupted from below the inn that Shuzi's heart began to race. These 5 auras are the auras of Empyrean realm martial artists. Shuzi was stunned and lost his composure as he cried out in alarm. Master Demon's expression stiffened and the arrogance in his eyes vanished. His pupils shrank as he stared at the 5 auras erupting from an inconspicuous room below. These 5 auras were very powerful. One of them had even reached the peak of the Empyrean realm. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 5 figures suddenly soared into the sky. Their terrifying auras turned into gusts of wind that revolved around the 5 figures. In an instant, the 5 of them arrived behind Zhuowen. Their heads were slightly lowered as if they were following Zhuowen's lead. These 5 people were Xiang Tianzuan, Empyrean Master Whitebrow, Empyrean Master Guanghan, Empyrean Master Huangjiao, and Empyrean Master Shiyu. Zhuowen had planned this a long time ago. He wanted to intimidate the entire Yang city and let everyone know that he, Zhuowen, was not a pushover. Therefore, this time, Zhuowen wanted to establish his might. And the target of his might was Qing Shuzi and Master Demon. Heavens! 5 Empyreans! One of them has such a terrifying aura. I'm afraid he has already reached the peak of the Empyrean realm. Could it be that these 5 Empyreans are Zhuowen's servants? Quickly give me a punch and see if I'm dreaming. The many martial warriors below first fell into silence. After regaining their senses, waves of uproar broke out. Their voices were filled with disbelief. In addition to the 5 Empyreans, Master Demon and Qing Shuzi, 7 Empyreans had appeared in the sky above Yang City. So many Empyreans had gathered together. This was something that had never happened in Yang City before. Therefore, more and more practitioners gathered in Yang City. Other than the Shaoyang clan, the other 3 great clans had also sent their own practitioners to observe. Among them was Wu Zongxing from the Wu clan. It is indeed him. Wu Zongxing's gaze froze as his entire body turned ice-cold. He had instantly recognized the youth surrounded by the 5 Empyreans. Wasn't he Zhuowen, whom they had wanted to capture last night? Fortunately, Zhuowen had not made a big move last night. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. After all, the former had 5 Empyreans behind him. Such a faction had already surpassed the 4 super factions of Yang City and was approaching the royal clan. If he wanted to destroy their Wu clan, it would only be a matter of hooking his finger. In the future, you must not offend Zhuowen. Otherwise, you will be dealt with according to the clan rules. Wu Zongxing instructed the group of practitioners behind him. Besides Wu Zongxing, the other practitioners from the other factions who had arrived were all shocked. One after another, they instructed the practitioners from their factions not to offend Zhuowen if they saw him in the future. Among the numerous practitioners, there were 3 figures with the most complicated gazes. The leader of the 3 was a one-armed middle-aged man. Beside him were 2 young women. One of them had an ice-cold expression while the other was cultured and refined. Father. This is the true faction behind Zhuowen. The 5 Empyreans. The cultured and refined woman softly sighed. The one-armed middle-aged man's body trembled as a trace of regret surfaced in his eyes. He hesitated as he said, Lingyu. With such a powerful faction behind little brother Zhuo, it should be easy to revive our one clan. What do you think? Before the middle-aged man could finish speaking, he was interrupted by the woman. Father, have you forgotten how you treated young Master Zhuo back then? In any case, I won't make this request to young Master Zhuo because it's too much. The 3 of them were Ruan Xianfeng, Ruan Lingyu, and Leng Ying from the Ruan clan. Ever since Xiaoyang Qinglin had caused a ruckus in the Ruan clan, almost all of the younger generation of the Ruan clan had died. Many of the Ruan clan's external practitioners had left to join the Ruan clan. Now, only the 3 of them were left in the Ruan clan. Speaking of which, the Ruan clan used to be considered a mid-tier clan in Yang City. Who would have thought that they would end up like this? It was lamentable. In fact, if the Ruan clan had treated Zhuowen well back then, perhaps Zhuowen would have helped the Ruan clan out of consideration for their old friendship. Unfortunately, both Ruan Xianfeng and Leng Feng had chosen to join the Shaoyang clan. Leng Feng had even helped the Shaoyang clan deal with Zhuowen. Thus, Zhuowen naturally had no obligation to help the Ruan clan, let alone revive the Ruan clan. Leng Ying, who was standing at the side, had a complicated look in her eyes. Especially when she saw the young man surrounded by the 5 heavenly venerables, traces of regret filled her face. Back then, she had always thought that Zhuowen was a good-for-nothing with no background behind him. However, everything that had happened afterward had slapped her hard in the face. She had been way too wrong. Not only was Zhuowen's cultivation at the supremacy realm, but he also had the protection of 5 heavenly venerables. His glory was no less than that of the imperial family's prince, Mo Lingtian. In the face of such a peerless monster, she had actually blindly mocked and ridiculed him. She had even encouraged her father, Lung Feng, to deal with Zhuowen. Thinking of her previous actions, Lung Ying suddenly felt that she was really laughable. She was just like a clown. Qing Shuzi and Demon Daoz's expressions were extremely ugly. They had never expected that 5 heavenly venerables would suddenly appear by Zhuowen's side. One of them was even a terrifying peak heavenly venerate. "Do the two of you still want to capture me?" Zhuowen asked unhurriedly. The corner of Qing Shuzi's mouth twitched. He suddenly smiled and said, "Zhuo Xiaoyu, it seems like all of this is a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding? A misunderstanding? You may think it's a misunderstanding, but I don't think so." Zhuowen smiled coldly. He then waved his right hand and said, "Kill them. Don't hold back." After saying that, the 5 heavenly venerables instantly rushed out and attacked Qing Shuzi and Demon Daozi. Their terrifying heavenly venerate auras were completely revealed and exploded in the sky. "Lunatic." Qing Shuzi's face turned purple. A jade-colored leaf appeared in his hand. He pinched it, and his entire body seemed to have teleported away. He didn't want to face 5 heavenly venerables. This was simply a situation of certain death. Teleportation again. Zhuowen glanced at Qing Shuzi, who had teleported away, and frowned. Zui Qingfeng had also used that jade-colored leaf before. It seemed like the people of Qing Shu Valley had a unique way of escaping. Chapter 935. Demon Daoist submits. At this moment, Demon Daoist's face was extremely gloomy. He was cursing Qing Shuzi in his heart for running away as soon as he saw that the situation was bad. The jade-colored leaf in Qing Shuzi's hand was called Wind Controlling 9 Autumns. There was a miniature teleportation array in the leaf. By crushing it, one could teleport thousands of miles away. This Wind Controlling 9 Autumns was left behind by the founder of the Clear Void Valley. There weren't many of them, so each one was one less. In the Clear Void Valley, only the upper echelons of the Clear Void Valley and the genius disciple Zui Qingfeng could use Wind Controlling 9 Autumns. Therefore, although Qing Shuzi wasn't strong, he was the most difficult person to kill in the Empyrean realm. Taking a deep breath, Demon Daoist's body surged with demonic energy. His eyes became pitch black and deep. Since he entered the Dao as a demon, he couldn't retreat. Once he retreated, his Dao heart would become unstable. Moreover, with 5 Empyreans joining forces, even if Demon Daoist wanted to escape, he couldn't. He could only fight. Kill. Demon Daoist held a demonic long sword in his hand. Then, he took a step forward and demonic energy surged around him. He slashed with his sword and countless black sword shadows appeared in the void. They were like countless phantoms that carried out an assassination. Xiang Tianzuan coldly snorted. He formed a seal with both hands and a blazing Xiang slowly rose from behind him. The dazzling purple light illuminated the entire void, causing the black sword shadows hidden in the void to have nowhere to hide. Black Demon slash. Demon Daoist's eyes were cold. He changed his sword stance and the countless sword shadows turned into countless ferocious demonic shadows that wrapped around Xiang. The monstrous demonic energy actually suppressed Xiang. Whoosh. Demon Daoist easily shuttled through the countless demonic shadows and instantly arrived in front of Xiang. He slashed with his sword and the countless demonic shadows went crazy, releasing a terrifying demonic energy. Boom. Xiang became dimmer and dimmer under this attack. Xiang Tianzuan narrowed his eyes and snorted coldly. Second Xiang overturning heaven and earth. As he spoke, an even more dazzling Xiang rose into the air. The 2 Xiang blazing suns began to revolve fiercely, erupting with terrifying heat and power. Boom. Boom. In an instant, all of the surrounding demonic shadows vanished beneath Xiang's light, turning into endless black gas. As for a purple energy, it was like 10,000 sword lights that shot towards Master Demon. Devil Sect. Master Demon's eyes were still cold. With a slash of the demonic sword, the surrounding demonic energy surged and formed a huge demonic shadow that blocked in front of him. Bang bang bang. The tens of thousands of Xiang beams slammed into the demonic silhouette, creating a deafening explosion that tore the demonic silhouette to shreds. Whoosh! Master Demon's eyes finally darkened. He retreated again and again, constantly waving the demonic sword in his right hand to block the incoming Xiang beams as he retreated. Xiang Tianzuan's strength had somewhat exceeded his expectations. Although he had entered the demonic path and obtained strength that far surpassed that of an ordinary Empyrean, even having strength comparable to a peak Empyrean. But even though they were both peak Empyrean, Xiang Tianzuan was not an ordinary Empyrean. His strength was similar to Lu Hantian's, and his talent could be considered top-notch. The strength he could display was much stronger than a peak Empyrean. Even though Master Demon's cultivation method was heaven-defying and his strength was extremely outstanding, when he truly collided with a peak Empyrean powerhouse like Xiang Tianzuan, he was undoubtedly at a disadvantage. Whoosh! Xiang Tianzuan arrived in an instant. His right palm thrust out and the power of Xiang poured out. It was as if countless Xiang beams had appeared in his palm, giving Master Demon a feeling that he was unable to resist. Demon slaughter! Master Demon roared. The demonic aura on his body was pitch black and deep to the extreme. His pupils became incomparably dark, and the demonic aura on his body became extremely rich. It was as if Master Demon had turned into a heinous demon at this moment. Kill! Master Demon roared. He waved his right hand, and the demonic sword in his hand split into two into three, until it split into 10 demonic swords with surging demonic aura that surrounded Master Demon. The 10 demonic swords slashed out at the same time, instantly breaking apart Xiang Tianzuan's palm that had transformed into countless Xiang beams. Xiang Tianzuan was even forced back by this demonic power, and his expression turned solemn. Entering the demonic path and grasping the power of the demonic path, he can actually display such terrifying strength. This Master Demon is really not simple. Looking at Master Demon's battle prowess that wasn't any weaker than Xiang Tianzuan, Zhuowen's eyes flashed. Back then, he used the blood inheritance seal to force himself into the demonic path, and he almost couldn't extricate himself from it. However, Master Demon took a different path. He entered the demonic path and grasped the power of the demonic path to display powerful strength. Zhuowen knew that if he could also grasp Master Demon's demonic path, then he might be able to completely grasp the power of the Blood Demon's demonic path. Thinking of the powerful strength that Master Demon displayed after entering the demonic path, Zhuowen couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement. The 5 of you attack together. Zhuowen didn't speak nonsense. Whether it was the entrance exam of Jioshan College or the demonic path, they all needed to be obtained from Master Demon. Now, he had to make Master Demon yield first. When the other 4 Empyreans heard this, they also didn't speak nonsense. They followed closely behind Xiang Tianzuan, each using their own attacks to deal with Master Demon. Although Master Demon, who grasped the demonic path, was very strong, he was at most comparable to Xiang Tianzuan. Now that the other 4 Empyreans joined in, even if Master Demon had 3 heads and 6 arms, it would be difficult for him to resist. Poochie. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Master Demon retreated. Under the joint attack of the 5 Empyreans, this was the first time he was injured and spat out blood. The aura on his body also became extremely weak, and his vision became blurry. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The 5 Empyreans instantly surrounded Master Demon, whose aura was unstable. Then, Zhuowen slowly descended in front of Master Demon. I really didn't expect that a mere junior like you would have 5 Empyrean slaves by your side. This time, I didn't lose unjustly. However, you can't kill me in Yang City. Once you kill me, His Majesty, the Flame Emperor, will act. So what if you have 5 Empyreans? Once an Emperor Realm expert acts, you will die without a doubt. Master Demon's eyes were filled with fear. Although the young man before him was much weaker than him, the trump cards in his hands were too powerful. They were so powerful that even he felt that it was inconceivable. I know. That's why I don't intend to kill you. Instead, I want to make a deal with you. Zhuowen nodded as the corners of his mouth curled up. A deal? Master Demon's face was astonished. He didn't expect that Zhuowen, who had 5 Empyrean slaves, actually didn't intend to kill him. Instead, he proposed a deal. What deal? Master Demon asked in a deep voice. I intend to join your heavenly peak devil palace. Zhuowen's unhurried voice rang out, but it caused Master Demon to freeze on the spot as if he had been electrocuted. He even thought that he had misheard. The young man in front of him, who had 5 Empyrean slaves, actually intended to join their heavenly peak devil palace. Master Demon even began to suspect that there was something wrong with his ears. You want to join the heavenly peak devil palace? Then you definitely have a request, right? Demon Daoist came back to his senses and said coldly. Of course. I, Zhuowen, will join your heavenly peak devil palace in order to replace that trash, Mo Ying. My request is for you to give me Mo Ying's spot to participate in the Divine Academy's entrance exam. I will participate in the exam on behalf of your heavenly peak devil palace. Zhuowen's expression was calm as he continued, don't think about refusing. With my strength and talent, I'm many times stronger than Mo Ying. Therefore, my chances of successfully entering the Divine Academy's outer court are much higher than Mo Ying's. At the same time, it will also increase the reputation of your heavenly peak devil palace. This is a win-win situation. Master Demon's eyes flickered. In fact, he was already tempted. After Mo Ying was crippled, he was a little worried that it would affect the results of the Divine Academy's entrance exam. After all, Mo Ying was the #1 genius of their heavenly peak devil palace. His strength had also reached the Xuanzuan realm, so his chances of successfully passing the Divine Academy's entrance exam were much higher. However, now that he was dead, it would be difficult to find another genius like him. If all the geniuses of the other 4 superpowers were selected and only their heavenly peak devil palace's genius was not, then their heavenly peak devil palace's influence in Yang City would be much lower than the other 4 superpowers. Master Demon agreed with Zhuowen's request. Zhuowen's talent and strength were absolutely top-notch. This child was probably comparable to the imperial family's prince, Mo Lingtian. His chances of successfully entering the Divine Academy were very high. However, Master Demon knew that Zhuowen wouldn't only have this one request. Therefore, he asked, you should have other conditions, right? Zhuowen smiled and said, of course. After I join your heavenly peak devil palace, you must teach me the secret technique to enter the Tao through the devil. This is the only condition. Oh, you want the secret technique to enter the Tao through the devil? Master Demon's face was gloomy. Entering the Tao through the devil was a powerful secret technique that Master Demon had figured out himself. The reason why he was able to rise up so quickly in just a few decades was mainly because of this secret technique that he had created. It could be said that this secret technique was the most precious thing on his body. He hadn't even taught it to Mo Ying. Now that Zhuowen had opened his mouth and wanted him to teach it to him, Master Demon began to hesitate. What? You're not willing? Although I won't kill you in Yang City, I can imprison you. Then, I can go to the heavenly peak devil palace and slaughter everyone there, destroying the forces you've cultivated for so many years. Don't doubt my words. I will do as I say. Zhuowen's killing intent surged. Master Demon's face turned cold and his eyes flickered. Finally, he sighed and said, I agree to your condition. Right now, the situation was stronger than the person. In front of Zhuowen, who had 5 Empyrean servants, Master Demon knew that he had no choice but to lower his head. Seeing Master Demon agree, Zhuowen revealed a brilliant smile. He waved his right hand and the 5 Empyreans respectfully stood behind him. How long until the entrance exam begins? Zhuowen lightly asked. Not long, about 2 months. Demon Daoist obediently replied. Chapter 936. 9 Autumns. Windmaster Demon didn't hesitate in his actions. Since they had already reached an agreement, he agreed very straightforwardly. This saved Zhuowen a lot of time. Master Demon, what is that jade-colored leaf that Qing Shuzi used just now? Zhuowen suddenly asked. Master Demon was startled for a moment before he coldly snorted. That leaf is called 9 Autumn's Wind. It contains a miniature teleportation array that can instantly teleport a person 1,000 miles away. It is a life-saving treasure left behind by the founder of Clear Void Valley. Master Demon became angrier the more he thought about Qing Shuzi, who escaped so quickly. If Qing Shuzi didn't escape and stayed behind, the two of them might have been able to block the attacks of the 5 Empyreans. Unfortunately, Qing Shuzi was too cowardly. When he saw that the situation wasn't good, he immediately fled, causing Master Demon to fall into such an embarrassing situation. 9 Autumn's Wind. How many of these treasures does Qing Shuzi have? Zhuowen asked with a smile on his face. Qing Shuzi shouldn't have many either. I don't think he has more than 5. After all, these things are gone with each use. Although the founder of Clearvoid Valley left behind many 9 Autumn's Wind, after so many years of use, these things are becoming rarer and rarer in Clearvoid Valley. Master Demon seemed to have thought of something as he stared at Zhuowen with a strange expression. Could it be that you plan to, this old thing is full of evil tricks. If I don't make him pay a price, it won't make sense. I'll have to trouble you to bring me to Clearvoid Valley. The corners of Zhuowen's mouth curled up. His meaning was clear. He was going to Clearvoid Valley to rob Qing Shuzi. All right. This Qing Shuzi is the most hypocritical person. Moreover, he prioritizes benefits above all else. He's really annoying. This time, we should make him bleed. Master Demon nodded, agreeing with Zhuowen's idea. The two of them chatted for a while. Just as they were about to set off, a voice suddenly came from the crowd below. Little brother Zhuo. Wait a moment. This voice was very loud and attracted the attention of many people in Yang City. After the earlier commotion, most of the surrounding cultivators naturally knew of Zhuowen's name. With 5 Empyrean servants, Zhuowen had scared away Master Qing Shu and defeated Master Demon Dao. Without a doubt, Zhuowen's name would once again shake the entire Yang City. In the hearts of these Yang City residents, Zhuowen would undoubtedly become a god. But now, someone had openly called Zhuowen little brother Zhuowen. Moreover, his voice did not hold back at all. It was very obvious that this person was rather familiar with Zhuowen, so it naturally attracted the attention of many people. A one-armed middle-aged man walked out from the crowd with 2 young women. He had a flattering smile on his face as he looked up at Zhuowen, who was floating in the air. His only at the ultimate 9th Wheel Emperor realm. With such a low cultivation, how did he get to know Zhuowen? Seeing that the one-armed middle-aged man and the 2 women behind him did not have a strong aura, the surrounding cultivators were puzzled. Zhuowen was a supreme being at such a young age, and he had 5 Empyrean servants by his side. To the majority of the cultivators, this was a big shot. In fact, his status far surpassed Demon Daoist and Qing Shu's status in the hearts of the cultivators. How did such an existence get to know a man who was only at the ultimate 9th Wheel Emperor realm, and one who had lost an arm? Therefore, there was a trace of confusion in everyone's eyes. The one-armed middle-aged man was the Ruan family head, Ruan Shenfeng. The 2 women behind Ruan Shenfeng were Ruan Lingyu and Leng Ying. Ruan Lingyu's pretty face was full of reluctance. She had been dragged out by Ruan Shenfeng. Even she did not expect Ruan Shenfeng to stand up at this moment. Zhuowen stared at Ruan Shenfeng indifferently and said indifferently, I wonder why the Ruan family head has called me over. As soon as these words were spoken, the gazes of the surrounding people towards Ruan Shenfeng changed. There was admiration, astonishment, envy, and jealousy. What kind of existence was Zhuowen? In a sense, he was even more terrifying than Demon Daoist and Qing Shu. Ruan Shenfeng actually knew Zhuowen. It seemed that the Ruan family was going to prosper. Many cultivators from the surrounding forces were secretly plotting how to build a good relationship with Ruan Shenfeng. Naturally, Ruan Shenfeng also noticed the surrounding gazes. The smile on his face became even brighter. He quickly said, ever since Brother Zhuo left the Ruan family, my daughter, Lingyu, has missed you very much, so, father. Ruan Lingyu's pretty face changed slightly. There was anger in her beautiful eyes. Ruan Shenfeng was really going too far. What did he think of her as his daughter? In the beginning, in order to climb up the Shaoyang aristocratic family, Ruan Shenfeng tried to curry favor with Shaoyang Pu. Now that he saw that Zhuowen actually had such a terrifying force behind him, he actually pushed her out. Ruan Lingyu suddenly felt that living in the Ruan family was a little sad. She was actually treated like an object by her biological father. This feeling made Wan Lingyu's heart turn to ashes. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. He naturally saw the sadness in Wan Lingyu's beautiful eyes. In addition to Wan Xuanfeng's ugly face, how could he not know the reason behind it? And then, Zhuowen replied indifferently. Zhuowen's indifferent attitude made Wan Xuanfeng's face freeze. However, he still smiled and said, "Back then, brothers were annihilated the Shaoyang aristocratic family in anger for my daughter. I also know Brother Zhuo's intentions, so I'm prepared to hand my daughter over to Brother Zhuo." As soon as these words came out, it caused an uproar. Everyone present naturally knew that the annihilation of the Shaoyang aristocratic family was related to this Zhuowen. There were even rumors that the Shaoyang aristocratic family was annihilated by this Zhuowen. As for why Zhuowen annihilated the Shaoyang aristocratic family, there had always been many disputes in Yang City. Now that Wan Xianfeng said this, the truth was revealed. This Zhuowen actually annihilated the Shaoyang aristocratic family in anger because of the Wan aristocratic family's daughter. Zhuowen suddenly smiled, but his smile was cold and heartless. This Wan Xianfeng was really shameless. Could it be that he had completely forgotten how he treated Zhuowen in the Wan family? Zhuowen's gaze directly ignored Wan Xianfeng and landed on Wan Lingyu. He said, "Miss Lingyu. Zhuowen, thank you for saving my life back then. The debt of saving my life is as heavy as a mountain. Zhuowen, will never forget it. How about this, you follow me to join the Heaven Peak Devil Palace. I will let Master Demon give you the best cultivation resources." As he spoke, Zhuowen waved his right hand. A surge of origin energy gushed out and lifted Wan Lingyu, who was behind Wan Xianfeng, to his side. "Young Master Zhuo, this wasn't my intention. It was all my father's own decision. I didn't know beforehand," Wan Lingyu said apologetically as she came to Zhuowen's side. Zhuowen's actions naturally caused an uproar and made many warriors cautious. At the same time, many of them made up their minds that they would never provoke the Wan family in the future. After all, this family had established a relationship with Zhuowen. Wan Xianfeng was extremely excited. He actually shamelessly brought Leng Ying and planned to come to Zhuowen's side. "Scram! Did I allow the two of you to follow me?" Zhuowen's gaze turned cold. When he saw that Wan Xianfeng actually wanted to come over, Zhuowen didn't hold back. Wan Xuanfeng's expression froze. He immediately forced a smile and said, "Little brother Zhuo, I'm Lingyu's father. Since she has joined the Heaven Peak Devil Palace, we naturally have to accompany her." However, before Wan Xianfeng could finish his words, a bloody light flashed past his side. His only remaining arm was actually broken, and blood spurted out wildly. The bloody light was too fast. Wan Xianfeng didn't even realize that his only remaining arm was broken. After that, a piercing pain spread throughout his body. Wan Xianfeng screamed in pain. "Don't test my patience. If I tell you to scram, then scram. I, Zhuowen, have said that I don't owe your Wan family. If I owe anything, it's Miss Lingyu. If you, Wan Xianfeng, didn't take the initiative to go against me, Zhuowen, to curry favor with the Shaoyang aristocratic family, perhaps I would still help your Wan family. Unfortunately, you wanted to kill me for the sake of the Shaoyang aristocratic family. Now that the Shaoyang aristocratic family has been destroyed, you want to obtain my help? Do you want me, Zhuowen, to let bygones be bygones and be tricked by you? Or do you think that I, Zhuowen, am as gullible as a 3-year-old child?" Zhuowen's voice resounded in the open space like thunder, causing Wan Xianfeng and Leng Ying's faces to turn incomparably pale. They didn't expect Zhuowen to be so ruthless, or to be so clear about gratitude and grudges. The surrounding cultivators were also stunned by Zhuowen's sudden action. Soon after, they all looked at Wan Xianfeng with a strange expression. From Zhuowen's words, it seemed that Wan Xianfeng had gone against Zhuowen in order to curry favor with the Shaoyang aristocratic family, and even wanted to kill Zhuowen. How foolish was that? It was no wonder that Zhuowen wouldn't hesitate to make a move. Wan Lingyu's beautiful eyes were complicated, but she didn't stop Zhuowen's action. After Wan Xianfeng had used her for many transactions, Wan Lingyu didn't have much affection for her father. In the end, She was just a bargaining chip in her father's eyes that could revive the family. Yes, yes. We'll leave now. Enduring the excruciating pain, Wan Shenfeng left the place with Leng Yu with a dejected expression. Soon, they disappeared into the crowd. Perhaps Wan Shenfeng didn't expect things to develop in this direction. If he knew, he wouldn't have stood out so shamelessly. Young Master Zhuo, Wan Lingyu suddenly stopped talking. Zhuoan faintly smiled and said, "Don't think too much about it. In the future, properly cultivate in the Heaven Peak Devil Palace. You have an extreme yin body that was born in the yin year, yin month, yin day, yin hour. You have a unique talent, and the Heaven Peak Devil Palace is actually very suitable for you. This little girl has an extreme yin body." The demon Daoist stared at Wan Lingyu in astonishment. His indifferent face was moved. Yes. Wan Lingyu nodded and said somewhat nervously. The demon Daoist was an overlord in Yang City. In her eyes, he was an unreachable existence. Naturally, she was quite nervous. "Little girl, are you willing to become my direct disciple?" The demon Daoist's eyes flickered as he suddenly asked. Wan Lingyu was startled. She didn't expect the demon Daoist to accept her as his direct disciple. She stammered and couldn't speak. Chapter 937. Robbery Demon Dao was only in his 30s, yet he was able to become one of the 5 overlords of Yang City. Moreover, he had created a secret technique that allowed one to enter the Dao through the devil. His battle strength was terrifying and he could be said to be a genuine genius. In Zhuowen's opinion, Demon Dao's talent was much stronger than Lu Hantian's. After all, Demon Dao was still so young and it shouldn't be difficult for him to reach the Emperor realm. His future was definitely limitless. If Wan Lingyu became Demon Dao's direct disciple, her future would be very great. Therefore, Zhuowen was quite relieved to hand Wan Lingyu over to Demon Dao. Hearing Zhuowen's agreement, Wan Lingyu lightly nodded. However, there was a trace of sadness in her beautiful eyes. In fact, she wanted to say that she wanted to follow by Zhuowen's side. Since Zhuowen said so, Wan Lingyu also knew that it wasn't possible for her to follow by Zhuowen's side. Let's go. Let's go to the Clear Void Valley to collect some interest first. After saying that, Zhuowen's gaze turned towards Demon Dao. The latter nodded and said, "Follow me. The Clear Void Valley isn't far from Yang City." After saying that, Demon Dao led them out of Yang City, leaving behind many cultivators in Yang City sighing with regret. A few thousand miles south of Yang City, there was a huge valley. The valley was surrounded by layers of mountains. Around the mountains, strands of milky white mist filled the air, faintly concealing the huge valley. A green figure instantly arrived at the entrance of the valley. This person was an old man with white hair and a beard. He had a sage-like demeanor. It was Qing Shu, who had miserably escaped from Yang City. Qing Shu's face was extremely gloomy. He didn't expect that Zhuowen would actually have 5 heavenly sovereign servants. This was an extremely terrifying force. Fortunately, he had a treasure like the Wind Imperial 9 Autumns to escape. Otherwise, he would have been left behind in Yang City forever. It's really like trying to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. However, Demon Dao is probably going to be in big trouble. Thinking of Demon Dao's situation, Qing Shu revealed a gloating smile. Sect Master. When the 2 guards at the entrance of the valley saw Qing Shu, they hurriedly bowed respectfully. At the same time, they opened the restriction at the entrance of the valley and invited Qing Shu in. Qing Shuzi nodded. With a flick of his sleeve, he gave off a sage-like aura, causing the 2 guards to feel deep veneration for him. Not long after Qing Shuzi entered the valley, a few more streaks of light flew over from the horizon. Their target was none other than the Clear Void Valley that was hidden in the clouds. Whoosh! Whoosh! A total of 7 silhouettes stopped at the entrance of the Clear Void Valley. The leader was a youth. He stared at the Clear Void Valley in front of him and said to a black-robed cold-faced man behind him, "Is this the Clear Void Valley?" The black-robed man nodded and said, "Yes. However, there are restrictive spells around the Clear Void Valley. It won't be that easy for you to break into the Clear Void Valley." Zhuowen, however, says with a smile, Could it be that 6 great celestial venerables still can't break through the restrictive spell of this Qingshu Valley? Master Demon's eyes narrowed and he coldly said, "You want me to be your coolie? This isn't coolie, it's cooperation. After breaking through this clear void valley, I'll give you a piece of the 9 autumns wind. However, if you don't cooperate, you'll have to bear the consequences." Zhuowen indifferently said. The 5 great celestial venerables behind him stepped out and coldly stared at Master Demon. Master Demon's eyelids twitched. He coldly snorted and flew towards the entrance of the clear void valley. The power of 5 great celestial venerables was not something that Master Demon could contend against. Therefore, he could only suffer in silence. "Master Demon of the Heavenly Peak Devil Palace? Why have you come to our clear void valley?" The 2 guards at the entrance of the valley immediately recognized Master Demon and coldly shouted, "Open the restrictive spell at the entrance of the valley or die." Master Demon indifferently says. The 2 guards' faces flushed red. They coldly said, "Master Demon, do you want to start a war between the clear void valley and the Heavenly Peak Devil Palace? You actually dare to break into our clear void valley by yourself? You won't open it? Then die." Master Demon took a step forward. Endless demonic energy gushed out from his body. Then, the demonic energy gathered into a demonic sword. With a slash of the demonic sword, a terrifying demonic energy exploded out and heavily slammed into the restrictive spell at the entrance of the valley. Rumble. Suddenly, the entire clear void valley shook. The surrounding mountains trembled even more. Countless rocks rolled down from above. The 2 guards at the entrance of the valley staggered and almost fell. They angrily shouted, "Master Demon, don't go too far. Our master is inside the valley. When he comes out, you're dead. Let that old man come out." "I can't wait for that old fart to come out quickly," Master Demon indifferently says. His hands' movements were not slow either. The clear void valley shook even more violently. And this violent shaking finally attracted the attention of all the disciples in the valley. There were many buildings in the clear void valley. Clouds and mist lingered around the valley. It was full of pavilions, terraces, and streams. It looked like a paradise on earth. But at this moment, the shaking that pervaded the entire clear void valley completely shocked everyone in the valley. Qingshu, who had just returned to the valley, hadn't even warmed his seat when he encountered this kind of thing. His originally bad mood became even worse. "How dare you break into my clear void valley? You really don't want to live." With that, Qingshu turned into a wisp of smoke and rushed towards the entrance of the valley. Whoosh! Not long after, Qingshu arrived at the entrance of the valley. But when he saw Master Demon attacking the restrictive spell, his pupils shrank. He shouted, "Master Demon, you actually didn't die?" Master Demon's movements stopped. He coldly stared at Qingshu and said, "Old fart, do you really want me to die that much? What are you doing? You want to break into my clear void valley?" Qingshu didn't answer Master Demon's question. "That's right. Just now, Senior Qingshuzi left too quickly. This junior came to visit Qingshu Valley this time just to ask for guidance from Senior Qingshuzi. How could I have expected that the guards at the entrance of the valley were too rude and blocked our way?" Zhuowen slowly walked out with a faint smile on his lips. His gaze was indifferent as he stared at Qingshu. "Zhuowen?" Qingshu's pupils shrank. Soon after, he stared at Master Demon and said, "I didn't expect that you would seek refuge with this Zhuowen in order to drag out an ignoble existence. You're the palace master of the Heavenly Peak Devil Palace. You really don't have any backbone." "Bullshit. I didn't seek refuge with Zhuowen. We just made a deal," Master Demon said coldly. Qingshu frowned slightly. He stared at Zhuowen and said, "Our clear void valley didn't offend you, little friend. Why did you come here this time?" Zhuowen grinned and said, "This junior took the liberty of paying a visit this time because I wanted to ask Senior Qingshu for 10 or so Wind Control 9 Autumns tablets. I think Senior Qingshu will generously give them to me, right?" Qingshu's face twitched. Asking for 10 or so Wind Control 9 Autumns tablets. This thing was left behind by the founder of the Clear Void Valley as an escape treasure for the later generations of the Clear Void Valley. There weren't many of them in total. This brat actually asked for 10 or so tablets. Wasn't this freaking robbery? What? Does Senior think this junior's request is too much? If you think it's too much, this junior won't force you. However, your Clearvoid Valley doesn't need to exist anymore. At this point, Zhuowen's voice was filled with dense killing intent. Don't go too far. The Wind Control 9 Autumns was left behind by the founder of the Clearvoid Valley. It belongs to the old ancestor. How can it be casually given to others? As for you wanting to destroy my Clearvoid Valley, I don't think you have the ability to do so. Qing Shu sneered. Is that so? Then I won't hold back. Xiang, you and Demon Daoist break the restriction at the entrance of the valley together. As soon as Zhuowen said this, the 5 celestial masters behind him rushed out at the same time. A terrifying aura burst out like a mountain falling from the sky, pressing down on the 2 guards at the entrance of the valley until their faces turned pale. There were actually 5 celestial masters. Including Demon Daoist, there were a total of 6 celestial masters joining forces to attack their Clearvoid Valley. This battle strength was too terrifying. Their Clearvoid Valley only had 1 celestial master, Qing Shu. However, this ordinary-looking youth was actually able to command 6 celestial masters. It was really inconceivable. Xiang Tianzuan and the other 4 naturally wouldn't disobey Zhuowen's order. They all released their strongest aura and then bombarded the restriction at the entrance of the valley. Demon Daoist also didn't want to be outdone. He waved his devil sword and joined forces with Xiang Tianzuan and the others. Not good. We must immediately return to the valley and activate the valley protecting Grand Array. Qing Shu's expression changed slightly. He grabbed the 2 guards in front of him with his right hand and then hurriedly rushed back to the valley. He knew that the restriction at the entrance of the valley wouldn't last for long. At this moment, the entire Clearvoid Valley was shaking even more violently. The disciples in the valley were also panicking. They were all guessing what was happening outside the valley. Headmaster is back. Soon, these anxious disciples of the Clearvoid Valley saw Qing Shu rushing over. Qing Shu didn't pay attention to these ordinary disciples. Instead, he went to the highest hall in the valley, gathered the 5 elders, and ordered them to activate the valley-protecting Grand Array. The 5 elders also realized that the situation was critical. They didn't ask any questions. Instead, they each took action and activated the valley-protecting Grand Array. After a while, a colorful protective barrier appeared outside the valley. This was the valley-protecting Grand Array left behind by the founder of the Clearvoid Valley. Catcher. The restriction at the entrance of the valley was quickly broken. Then, Zhuowen let Ruan Lingyu stay outside the valley and rushed into the valley with the 6 celestial sovereigns. After passing through a ravine-like passage, they quickly arrived inside the valley. Unfortunately, the valley was currently enveloped by a great formation. Moreover, looking at the might of this great formation, its power was probably not weak. On the other side of the light barrier, Qing Shu led the 5 elders and stared at Zhuowen and the 6 celestial sovereigns behind him with a serious expression. As for the disciples within the valley, they were all curiously looking up at the uninvited guests outside the light barrier. They were very curious as to who had the guts to attack their Clearvoid Valley. Furthermore, their headmaster, Qing Shuzi, seemed to be very nervous. However, when the disciples of the Clearvoid Valley saw that the person leading the group outside the light barrier was actually a young man around 20 years old, they were all stunned. Such a young man actually dared to trespass into their Clearvoid Valley. Moreover, Qing Shu was acting so cautiously. When the disciples of the Clearvoid Valley saw the 6 imposing figures behind the young man, they were finally shocked. That was because none of the 6 people's auras were weaker than their headmaster, Qing Shu. Chapter 938. Breaking the formation. Qing Shuzi stared at Zhuowen with a serious gaze and said, "Zhuowen, my Clearvoid Valley didn't provoke you, right? Why are you so overbearing, and even daring to attack my Clearvoid Valley? Hua. His Zhuowen. I didn't expect him to be so young. He looks only 20 years old." Once Qing Shu's words left his mouth, all of the disciples in the valley were shaken. During this period of time, the rumors regarding Zhuo Wen had spread like wildfire within Yang City. Even the majority of the Clear Void Valley disciples several thousand miles away had heard of Zhuo Wen's matter. It was said that a month ago, the Xiaoyang family was destroyed by Zhuo Wen. Moreover, this Zhuo Wen had a heavenly venerate expert guarding him. But now it seemed that the rumors were wrong. This Zhuo Wen didn't only have one heavenly venerate expert guarding him. He clearly had 5 heavenly venerate experts. Adding Demon Daozi, that was a total of 6 heavenly venerate experts. This was a terrifying force, enough to sweep through their Clear Void Valley. If it wasn't for the valley protecting formation, the Clear Void Valley would have been in chaos by now. Senior Qing Shuzi, I don't want to cause trouble in your Clear Void Valley. I just want to ask for some wind-controlling 9 autumns. Senior Qing Shuzi, you shouldn't be stingy with the sect in mind, right? Zhuo Wen said with a faint smile. Qing Shuzi's face twitched. He said coldly, the wind-controlling 9 autumns is a treasure left behind by the founder. How can it be given to an outsider? Zhuo Wen, although you have 6 heavenly venerates, it won't be that easy to break my valley protecting formation. I advise you to leave as soon as possible. You think we can't break it? How laughable. Xiang, all of you attack together. I want to see if this so-called valley protecting formation is really that strong. Zhuo Wen said with a cold expression. Yes. Xiang Tianzuan nodded. He led the other 4 heavenly venerates, revealing their heavenly venerate auras, and began to attack the light barrier in front of them. Under Zhuo Wen's gaze, Demon Daozi curled his lips and cooperated with Xiang Tianzuan and the others to attack together. Boom! Boom! The 6 exalted celestials each unleashed a powerful attack. In an instant, all kinds of colored origin energy exploded. Like brilliant fireworks, they appeared in the sky above the Clear Void Valley. Soon after, the entire Clear Void Valley began to violently shake. The seemingly powerful valley protection array was on the verge of collapse. The light within it had even dimmed. This scene caused Qing Shuzi and the others to break out in cold sweat. Fortunately, although the protective valley array seemed to be on the verge of collapse, it was extremely sturdy. No matter how Xiang Tianzuan and the others attacked, it actually managed to block the combined attack of the 6 celestial masters. Xiang Tianzuan and the others frowned. After a round of attacks, they stopped attacking and slowly retreated. They looked at Zhuo Wen as if they were asking for his opinion. Zhuo Wen frowned slightly. It seemed that the valley-protecting grand formation of this Clear Void Valley was indeed not ordinary. It was actually able to hold on for so long without collapsing. Kid, you must find the formation core of this valley protection array. Only by piercing through it can you completely destroy this valley protection array. Brute force is not enough to destroy it at all. Xiao Hei's voice rang out in Zhuo Wen's mind. Zhuo Wen nodded. Naturally, he knew that if he wanted to destroy the array easily, he had to find the formation core. However, this valley protection array was so big that it was not that easy to find the formation core. Moreover, he did not know anything about arrays. Xiao Hei, I'll have to rely on you to destroy this array. Zhuo Wen said awkwardly. I knew it. This Dragon Lord will have to do it again. Start transforming into your Dragon Man form. After that, hand over control of your body to me. Xiao Hei instructed. Zhuo Wen nodded. An ink-black mist gushed out from between his eyebrows. This mist enveloped his entire body. Ear-piercing sounds of bones dislocating rang out. Zhuo Wen transformed into his Dragon Man form that was covered in bone spikes. His eyes were a strange dark gold color. At this moment, Qing Shuzi and the others in the valley heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that the 6 heavenly sovereigns were unable to destroy the valley protection array. Zhuo Wen, this valley protection array is not something that can be destroyed with brute force. You'd better retreat. Otherwise, you'll just be wasting your time here. Qing Shuzi was very confident at this moment. However, the only response he received was a long period of silence. Soon after, he gathered his gaze. Unknowingly, Zhuo Wen's entire body was covered with dragon scales, and there was a huge dragon tail behind him. He appeared extremely strange. When did this kid become so strange? Qing Shuzi muttered softly. Before he could react, Zhuowen, who had transformed into his dragonman form, leaped up and arrived above the valley protection array. His dark gold eyes emitted a sharp light. "What is this kid doing?" Demon Daozi asked in confusion. However, Xiang Tianzuan and the others did not answer him because they also did not know what Zhuowen was doing. "It should be around here," Xiao He muttered softly. Then, his right elbow suddenly struck above the valley protection array. The sharp bone spikes emitted a sharp cold light. Compete. Zhuowen, even the 6 heavenly sovereigns were unable to break the valley protection array. "Do you think that you can break it after transforming into such a hideous state?" Qing Shuzi snorted coldly. His eyes were filled with disdain. Zhuowen did not pay any attention to Qing Shuzi's mockery. His elbow struck above the valley protection array and a powerful force poured out. The entire valley protection array seemed to come to a standstill at this moment. Catcher. Cracks began to spread in all directions from the center of the valley protection array. Then, the light shield of the valley protection array shattered into countless light spots in front of everyone's eyes. Qing Shu Valley fell into a strange silence. The smile on Qing Shu's face also froze. He looked as if he had seen a ghost and his mouth was wide open. "It's broken," Qing Shuzi murmured doubtfully. The 5 elders beside him swallowed their saliva and nodded with difficulty. Then, they spat out a word, "Yes." The expressions on the faces of Xiang Tianzuan and the others were even more interesting. The valley protection array that the 6 heavenly sovereigns had worked together to attack for a long time was actually broken by Zhuowen so easily. Moreover, it seemed that Zhuowen had only attacked once and the valley protection array shattered like glass. They suddenly felt that their dignity as heavenly sovereigns had suffered a great blow. "Take down Qing Shuzi," Zhuowen's voice rang out. Xiang Tianzuan and the others finally came to their senses. They stamped their feet and flew toward Qing Shuzi. Qing Shuzi also came to his senses and tried his best to resist. He wanted to stop Xiang Tianzuan and the others. Unfortunately, whether it was strength or the number of heavenly sovereigns, Qing Shuzi was completely inferior to Zhuowen's group. In a breath's time, Qing Shuzi was captured by Xiang Tianzuan. The disciples in Qing Shu Valley all looked flustered, but no one dared to move. Their leader, Qing Shuzi, had been captured. Their resistance was futile. "Don't kill me," Qing Shuzi said in a panic. At this moment, Zhuowen had already left his dragonman state. He slowly walked up to Qing Shuzi and said in a somewhat roguish manner, "Don't worry. I, Zhuowen, am not a bloodthirsty person. Take out all the 9 autumn's wind that you have. Don't play any tricks. If you don't, I'll really kill you." Qing Shu's face stiffened. However, when he saw Zhuowen's cold gaze, he sighed softly and took out 5 9 autumn's wind from his spiritual ring and handed them to Zhuowen. "That's all?" Zhuowen pointed at the 5 9 autumn's wind and asked. "Yes, that's all," Qing Shuzi said hurriedly. The corners of Zhuowen's mouth curled up slightly as he said, "Senior Qing Shu, it's not that I don't believe you, but I just want to confirm it. Can you show me the items in your spiritual ring to see if you really don't have anything else?" Qing Shuzi hesitated. The spiritual ring in his hand was the symbol of the Qing Shu Valley's leader. It was also left behind by the founder of the Qing Shu Valley. Its space was much larger than that of an ordinary spiritual ring. How could he casually show it to others? Could it be that Senior Qing Shuzi doesn't trust me, Zhuowen? Zhuowen's voice suddenly became cold. The aura of Xiang Tianzuan and the others also became more and more terrifying. This made Qing Shu's heart tremble. He had no choice but to take off the spiritual ring, erase the imprint, and hand it to Zhuowen. "Of course I trust little brother Zhuo. Take it and have a look," Qing Shuzi said painfully. After taking the spiritual ring, Zhuowen casually checked it. He was surprised to find that the space in Qing Shu's spiritual ring was actually very large. It was at least 10 times the space of an ordinary spiritual ring. This spiritual ring was not ordinary. Moreover, there were a lot of spiritual stones in the spiritual ring. Among them, there were nearly 1 million upper-grade spiritual stones and several million middle-grade spiritual stones. The wealth on his body was actually much richer than that of the Shaoyang family. Qing Shuzi did not lie. There was indeed no extra 9 autumns wind in the spiritual ring. It was basically filled with spiritual stones. Little brother Zhuo, shouldn't you return the spiritual ring to me? Qing Shuzi suddenly reminded Zhuowen. Zhuowen gently stroked Qing Shuzi's spiritual ring, then took off the other spiritual ring from his hand. He emptied the contents of the spiritual ring and threw it to Qing Shuzi, saying, I think your spiritual ring is very compatible with mine. How about we exchange? The corner of Qing Shuzi's mouth twitched. Could Zhuowen be any more shameless? He actually dared to exchange the spiritual ring in front of him. What was the difference between this and robbery? Looking at Senior Qing Shuzi's expression, it seems that you are not very satisfied with my spiritual ring. Zhuowen grinned, revealing a row of cold teeth. Qing Shuzi could not help but shudder. He had already cursed Zhuowen's 18 generations of ancestors in his heart. However, his face was full of smiles, and he said, since little brother Zhuowen likes it, we can exchange. Now, Qing Shuzi did not dare to refuse. Zhuowen's character was unpredictable. Moreover, his life was in his hands. How could he risk his life to refuse Zhuowen? My way of doing things is indeed a little inappropriate. However, since Senior Qing Shuzi insists on exchanging with me, then I will reluctantly accept. Zhuowen chuckled and openly put Qing Shuzi's spiritual ring on his hand without a trace of shame on his face. Meanwhile, Qing Shuzi was already cursing in his heart. This Zhuowen definitely said those words on purpose to provoke him. Since this matter has been settled, we will not disturb Senior any longer. Goodbye. Chapter 939. Demonic Path. The spiritual ring on Qing Shu's finger is called the Qing Shu ring. It's the keepsake of the Qing Shu Valley's headmaster. It's a top-grade spiritual ring forged by the founder of the Qing Shu Valley. Demon Daoist looked at the clear void ring on Zhuowen's hand with envy and continued, the space in your clear void ring is more than 10 times that of an ordinary spirit ring. It is much more practical than an ordinary spirit ring. There is a hint of astonishment in Zhuowen's eyes. He did not expect this Qingshu ring to have such an extraordinary origin. It was actually forged by the founder of the Qingshu Valley. From the valor-protecting formation and this Qingshu ring, it can be seen that the founder of the Qingshu Valley was not simple at all. With a flick of his finger, Zhuowen handed a wind control 9 autumns to Demon Daoist and said indifferently, this is the wind control 9 autumns that I promised to give you. Keep it well. Master Demon was startled. He didn't think that Zhuowen would actually give him a supreme treasure like the 9 autumns wind guard. After putting away the 9 autumns wind guard, Master Demon's eyes flashed with surprise. This wind dominates the 9 autumns was extremely useful in his life or death situation. It was no different from having an extra life, but Zhuowen still gave him one. This caused an indescribable feeling to surge in Master Demon's heart. Don't look at me like that. I, Zhuowen, will naturally honor my words, Zhuowen said calmly. Daoist Demon nodded and cupped his hands at Zhuowen, saying, many thanks then. After that, the group didn't speak a word. After half a day, Demon Daoist brought Zhuowen to the Heavenly Peak Devil Palace. As soon as they arrived at the Heavenly Peak Devil Palace, Demon Daoist conferred Zhuowen the title of head disciple in front of the many disciples of the Heavenly Peak Devil Palace. His status was almost the same as Demon Shadow's. Naturally, Demon Shadow's position also fell on Zhuowen's head. Because of this matter caused quite a huge commotion within the Heavenly Peak Demon Palace. Many disciples faintly felt somewhat unconvinced. They also knew that Mo Ying had died in Yang City. However, they did not know the exact reason. But once Demon Shadow died, Master Demon Dao actually conferred a strange young man as his eldest disciple. His status was the same as Demon Shadow's, and this person seemed to have special privileges that Demon Shadow didn't have. In an instant, Zhuowen became the target of public criticism in the Celestial Peak Devil Palace. However, since Zhuowen went into seclusion as soon as he entered the Celestial Peak Devil Palace, those disciples who were unconvinced didn't have the chance to provoke Zhuowen. However, It was precisely because of this behavior that the disciples of the Heaven Peak Devil Palace maliciously guessed that Zhuowen was afraid of being challenged by other disciples and used the excuse of being in seclusion to avoid the battle. Zhuowen naturally didn't know about the malicious guesses of the disciples of the Celestial Peak Devil Palace. Even if he knew, he wouldn't pay too much attention to it. The number one genius of the Celestial Peak Devil Palace, Missouri Ying, was killed by him, and Master Demon was even more afraid of him. Why would he pay too much attention to the small fries of the Celestial Peak Devil Palace? After Ruan Lingyu was brought back to the Celestial Peak Devil Palace, she was accepted as a direct disciple by Master Demon Dao. Under the guidance of Master Demon Dao, she also went into seclusion. The Celestial Peak Devil Palace was built on top of a mountain peak that was tens of thousands of feet tall. This mountain peak was surrounded by a strange black fog. This black fog rolled wantonly as if it could transform into tens of thousands of demons. At the top of the mountain peak, there was a majestic palace that stood tall. The sharp top of the palace revealed a sharpness and arrogance that couldn't be looked at directly. In a spacious hall of one of the palaces, a lonely figure was sitting cross-legged on a praying mat. This person was about 20 years old. His long hair draped over his shoulders and his chest was moving up and down rhythmically. His breathing was steady. Slowly opening his eyes, Zhuowen flicked his finger and took out a blue crystal. Within the blue crystal, there was a constantly wriggling worm. It was the 10,000 years black soul ice parasite larva that he took out from Ruan Lingyu's body. Xiao He. This thing seems to be very impatient during this period of time. How should I deal with it? Zhuowen slightly knitted his brows. During this period of time, the 10,000 years black soul ice parasite larva constantly emitted shrill cries. It was like a pig that was being slaughtered, causing Zhuowen's heart to be in a mess. This 10,000 years black soul ice parasite larva was at the crucial moment of breaking out of its cocoon and transforming into a butterfly. Because of you, it's in great pain now. Without the nourishment of cold energy, it won't live for long. Xiao Hei's eyes flickered. It's going to die. Xiao Hei, didn't you say that once this 10,000 years black soul ice parasite larva breaks out of its cocoon and transforms into a black soul ice butterfly? And this black soul ice butterfly has great potential. If it's nurtured, it can become a demon emperor. Then is there any other way to help it successfully break out of its cocoon and transform into a butterfly? Zhuowen suddenly asked. He was very clear that this black soul ice butterfly had great potential. If there was a strong supply of cold energy, this black soul ice butterfly would continue to evolve and eventually transform into a demon emperor. That was an extremely terrifying existence. Zhuowen was very tempted by this point. It's very difficult. According to the ancient records, if this 10,000 years black soul ice parasite larva wants to break out of its cocoon and transform into a butterfly, it can only be done with the help of a girl with an extreme yin body. This dragon lord has never heard of any other methods. Xiao Hei shook his head. The Holy Rune of Ice in the Holy Rune of Icefire Holy Rune is a place of extreme yin and extreme cold. If we put this 10,000 years black soul ice parasite larva into the Holy Rune of Ice, do you think it's possible to nurture it? Zhuowen's eyes shone brightly. When Zhuowen obtained the 10,000 year black soul ice parasite larvae, he had already considered using the Holy Rune of Ice to nurture them. However, he had been in a crisis before, so Zhuowen did not implement it. Now that everything had been settled, Zhuowen naturally began to consider this 10,000 years black soul ice parasite larva. What you said makes sense, but this method has never been tried before. Xiao Hei said with some hesitation. Then let's give it a try. As Zhuowen spoke, the Holy Rune of Ice on the back of his left hand suddenly shone brightly. Then, waves of cold energy gushed out and wrapped around the 10,000 years black soul ice parasite in his hand. Sure enough, when the cold energy wrapped around the 10,000 years black soul ice parasite larva, the latter actually stopped roaring. Its fleshy body, which had been constantly struggling, also quieted down. It's effective. Seeing this scene, Zhuowen beamed with joy. It's really effective. Boy, you can put this 10,000 years black soul ice parasite larva into the Holy Rune of Ice. When the larva has completely broken out of its cocoon, you can release it. During this period, the cold energy in the holy rune of ice will continue to nurture the lava. Xiao He continued. Zhuowen nodded. With a thought, the cold energy wrapped around the 10,000 years black soul ice parasite lava trembled and completely pulled it into the holy rune of ice. Originally, there was a small space inside the holy rune of ice and fire. However, this space could only contain ice and fire energy. Other objects could not be placed inside. The 10,000 years black soul ice parasite lava was wrapped in cold energy and was an ice attribute species. Naturally, it could enter the holy rune of ice. Zhuowen knew that it would take a long time for the 10,000 years black soul ice parasite lava to truly break out of its cocoon and become a butterfly. Therefore, he had to wait patiently. After dealing with the 10,000 years black soul ice parasite lava, Zhuowen took out a black jade slip from his bosom. This jade slip was surrounded by wisps of black mist, which looked exceptionally strange. This jade slip was given to him by the demon Daoist. It recorded the demon Daoist's secret method of entering the Tao with the demon Daoist, as well as some of his cultivation experiences and insights. Boy. If you can completely grasp the method of entering the Tao with the demon Daoist, then you can unlock a part of the power of the demon eye of the Buddha demon eye. Xiao He advised. Will the demon eye of the Buddha demon eye be of help to my cultivation of entering the Tao with the demon Daoist? Zhuowen suddenly asked. Of course. The Buddha demon eye was transformed from a true Buddha and true demon. After being refined by the fighting Buddha demon sage for countless years, it is extremely beneficial to the Buddha demon cultivation method. Xiao He nodded. Hearing this, Zhuowen's right hand touched between his eyebrows. Suddenly, a wisp of golden black light swept out from between his eyebrows and turned into an eye that alternated between golden black light. Demon eye. Zhuowen lightly shouted. The golden black light of the Buddha demon eye slowly dissipated and was replaced by a wisp of extremely deep darkness. It turned into a demonic eye. A demonic aura spread out from the demonic eye and spread throughout Zhuowen's body, causing Zhuowen's entire body to be filled with a monstrous demonic aura, as if he was an unpardonable great demon. Zhuowen silently felt the demonic aura coming from the demonic eye and comprehended the demon Tao contained within. Then, he opened the black jade slip in front of him and read the contents. Since the beginning of time, the demon Tao has been established. Entering the Tao with the demon Daoist is free and unfettered. Among all things, I am the only one. If I want to cover the sky will be dark. Mysterious contents flashed through Zhuowen's mind from the jade slip. These contents were the experiences and methods of the demon Daoist when he first entered the Tao with the demon Daoist. Moreover, the contents were extremely domineering. The demon Tao was the Tao of the self. It was the Tao of the self that would rather betray the world than betray oneself. In the heart of a true demon, everyone was nothing. Only the self was the only Tao. The true demon Tao only had the obsession to become stronger. In order to pursue the Tao, one could abandon all obsessions. Feeling the demon Tao's truth, Zhuowen frowned slightly. It seemed that the demon Tao was the Tao of ruthlessness. Although Zhuowen was sometimes very cold and ruthless, it was impossible for him to reach the realm of ruthlessness. Kid. As long as you guard your heart, regardless of whether you become a demon or a Buddha, it is just a medium for great power. Xiao He suddenly reminded. Hearing this, Zhuowen's eyes were startled. Immediately, a clear look appeared on his face. Xiao He was right. Whether it was becoming a Buddha or a demon, it was just a way to obtain great power. As long as he guarded his heart, it would be fine. Thinking of this, Zhuowen slowly stood up. The demonic eye between his eyebrows became even more profound. Waves of demonic aura surged, almost wrapping Zhuowen's entire body. Chapter 940. The evil repellent 7 times ticked by and 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. Almost all the disciples of the Devil Palace had gathered in the Heavenly Devil Square of Heavenly Peak Devil Palace. It was bustling with activity. Tomorrow was the day they would head to the outer courtyard of the Joshin Academy. Today, the 5 people would gather in Yang City and the Flame Emperor would lead them to the assessment location. As for the many disciples of the Heaven Peak Devil Palace, Demon Shadow, one of the 5, had died in Yang City 3 months ago. As for Zhuo Wen, he had just joined the Heaven Peak Devil Palace not long ago. Therefore, these disciples had come to persuade Master Demon to replace him. Swoosh! The demon Dao slowly appeared in the Heavenly Devil Square. However, his gaze was fixed on a black palace not far away. This palace was specially arranged for Zhuowen. 2 months ago, he had recorded the secret method of entering the Dao using the demon Dao on a jade slip and gave it to Zhuowen. After that, Zhuowen immediately went into seclusion in the palace. The threshold for entering the Dao using the demon Dao was very high. Even though the secret method was created by the demon Dao, he had spent nearly half a year to grasp the basics. Hence, the demon Dao naturally didn't think that Zhuowen would be able to comprehend the secret method of entering the Dao using the demon Dao in 2 months. Palace Master. A group of people walked out of the Heavenly Devil Square. There were a total of 7 people in this group, and all of them had powerful auras. The person in the lead had the most powerful aura. This person wore tight black clothes, had short black hair, and had a silver ring on his nose. His eyes were filled with evil. When the 7 of them walked out, a commotion broke out in the Heavenly Devil Square. Many disciples looked at the 7 of them with fear and dread in their eyes. Clearly, the 7 of them were quite famous and intimidating in the Heavenly Devil Palace. The evil repellent 7. I wonder why they are here. Don't you know? The leader of the evil repellent 7, Mo Ling, broke through to the Xuanzuan realm a month ago. This time, he is probably here to ask for Mo Ying's spot or even to replace Mo Ying. Mo Ling's strength is indeed not bad. Back then, he was only second to Mo Ying in the Heavenly Devil Palace. However, I heard that the spot has been given to the newcomer by the Palace Master. Can Mo Ling even come over? Discussions slowly rang out as everyone stared at the actions of the demonized 7 men without blinking. What is it? Master Demon asked coldly. Mo Ling and the others bowed respectfully, and Mo Ling said, Palace Master. A month ago, Mo Ling successfully entered the Xuanzuan realm. In terms of strength, he's actually not weaker than Mo Ying back then. Originally, I should have replaced Mo Ying's position, but the Palace Master gave all the glory and status of the eldest disciple to a new disciple, so Mo Ling was dissatisfied. Master Demon's lips curled up and he said, You really aren't convinced? Mo Ling froze for a moment before replying, Indeed. Our Heavenly Peak Devil Palace speaks with strength. We don't even know how strong that new disciple is. Rashly giving him the position of head disciple is already inappropriate. Therefore, Mo Ling hopes that the Palace Master can give me a fair chance to compete. If that person is stronger than me, then I have nothing to say. If he's weaker than me, then he doesn't have the qualifications to have that spot. Mo Ling's tone contained a sharp aura. Master Demon looked at Mo Ling with a strange gaze. He naturally knew how strong Zhuowen was. Moreover, Zhuowen's cultivation was at the initial stage of the Sovereign Realm, which was 1 realm higher than Mo Ling. Now, Mo Ling actually proposed to challenge Zhuowen. Wasn't that just courting death? Mo Ling also saw the strange look in Master Demon's eyes and thought that Master Demon wanted to protect Zhuowen, so he said with some dissatisfaction, Palace Master, it's not your character to be biased. Moreover, our Heavenly Peak Devil Palace has always followed the law of the jungle. Could it be that the Palace Master wants to be biased towards that newcomer? Master Demon shook his head and said coldly, Since you want to challenge him, I naturally won't stop you. Moreover, if you can defeat that person, then giving the spot to you is a matter of course. However, everything will have to wait until he comes out of seclusion. The corner of Mo Ling's mouth slightly curled up as he nodded. He then stood aside with the 6 people behind him, silently waiting for Zhuowen to come out of seclusion. However, when the sun was high up in the sky, Zhuowen still hadn't come out of seclusion. Many disciples who were waiting in the Heavenly Devil Square began to feel a little restless. They all guessed that Zhuowen was afraid and didn't dare to come out. Mo Ling crossed her arms, and the contempt in her eyes became even more intense. She was sure that Zhuowen might really be afraid. Master Demon's gaze was still indifferent, as if there was nothing in the world that could make him reveal other emotions. Boom! Suddenly, A pillar of blood soared into the sky from Zhuowen's palace. It was like a pillar that supported the heavens as it pierced through the sky. Monstrous demonic intent spread out from the palace, causing the entire heavenly peak devil palace to tremble. What a terrifying demonic intent! Could this demonic intent be released by the new disciple? Feeling the terrifying demonic intent, everyone in the heavenly devil square was shocked. Some of the weaker disciples even felt their legs go soft and they almost knelt on the ground. This demonic intent was too terrifying, causing them to feel a sense of submission in their hearts. Mo Ling, who originally had disdain in his eyes, was also a little moved at this moment. He frowned his brows and there was a trace of dread in his eyes. It seemed like this new disciple wasn't simple. He was actually able to release such a terrifying demonic intent. No wonder the palace master gave the position of the head disciple to him. However, Mo Ling's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. Even if this person had a powerful demonic intent, he was still confident in his own strength. As long as he defeated this person, he would become the #1 genius of the Heavenly Peak Devil Palace's new generation. In the Heavenly Devil Square, the one who was the most shocked was the demon Daoist, who had an indifferent expression from the beginning. At this moment, the demon Daoist's body was trembling. His gaze froze as he stared blankly at the towering blood pillar. Others might only feel that the demonic intent in the blood pillar was very strong, but he could see something deeper. This demonic intent was indeed very strong, and it was released under the control of someone. Only a martial artist who had mastered the demonic intent could release such a terrifying demonic intent. The demon Daoist immediately thought of Zhuowen. Could it be that Zhuowen has grasped the initial step of entering the Tao with the devil in a short 2 months? This guy. The demon Daoist was really shocked. Zhuowen's talent was so high that it had exceeded his expectations. Back then, he had used half a year to master the demonic Tao technique. This was already considered a short time. However, he did not expect that Zhuowen would actually shorten his time record by 3 times. It only took him 2 months to grasp the initial stage of the secret technique of entering the Tao through the devil. Whoosh! A figure rushed out of the blood pillar and quickly arrived in the sky above the heavenly devil square. Everyone raised their heads and saw a young man with blood-red hair and blood-red eyes. His entire body was exuding an extremely strong demonic aura. This young man's entire body was shrouded in a terrifying blood aura. His figure was faintly discernible and seemed extremely mysterious. This child has actually stepped into the demonic Tao of slaughter. Moreover, he has mastered the demonic Tao technique so quickly. Could it be that this child has experienced the demonic Tao before? Moreover, this experience is related to the demonic Tao of slaughter, so he stepped into the demonic Tao of slaughter? Looking at the figure whose entire body was surging with blood aura, the demon Daoist's eyes narrowed. He remembered that the demonic Tao recorded in his jade slip wasn't the demonic Tao of slaughter, but the demonic Tao of ice. There were thousands of Taos in the world. Although it was the demonic Tao was naturally subdivided into many types. The demonic Tao that the demon Daoist comprehended was the demonic Tao of ice. From beginning to end, he was immersed in calmness and indifference. This was the demonic Tao of slaughter that allowed him to obtain powerful strength and control. But because Zhuowen had used the power of the blood demon to enter the demonic Tao, and the blood demon cultivated the demonic Tao of slaughter, it was a terrifying demonic Tao that sacrificed blood to the heavens. Zhuowen had a unique understanding of the demonic Tao of slaughter. Although the jade slip that the demon Daoist gave him didn't contain any cultivation methods for the demonic Tao of slaughter, since they were both part of the demonic Tao, their cultivation methods would naturally lead to the same goal. From the jade slip that the demon Daoist gave him, Zhuowen naturally walked onto his own demonic Tao. Have you grasped the initial mastery of the demonic Tao technique? Zhuowen slowly descended beside the demon Daoist. The demon Daoist couldn't help but ask, I have indeed grasped the initial mastery. The power of the demonic Tao is truly terrifying. It can actually increase my strength by so much. Demon Daoist, how many realms does the demonic Tao technique have? Zhuowen suddenly asked. 5 realms, and each realm is more terrifying than the last. Currently, I have only grasped 2 realms of the demonic Tao. Your demonic Tao is different from my demonic Tao. Yours is the demonic Tao of slaughter. This also means that if you want to take the demonic Tao further in the future, you will have to kill. Killing is a virtue. Demon Daoist said in a dignified tone. Killing is a virtue. Zhuowen lightly muttered to himself. In the past 2 months, while he was cultivating the demonic Tao technique, he had also incorporated the power of the blood demon into his body and silently comprehended the intense demonic intent within the blood demon. Unexpectedly, in just 2 months, he had naturally grasped the demonic Tao of slaughter. Moreover, Zhuowen also discovered that because of the existence of the demonic eye, his cultivation of the demonic Tao technique was actually aided by the heavens. His cultivation speed was unimaginably fast. The demonic Tao was divided into 5 realms. Now, Zhuowen had grasped the first realm. However, just the power of the first realm brought endless benefits to Zhuowen. His strength had multiplied, and with his sovereign realm cultivation, he didn't need to fear a golden venerable. Moreover, in the past 2 months, in addition to comprehending the demonic intent, Zhuowen's cultivation had also improved. He had reached the middle stage of the sovereign realm, which could be considered a small harvest. It seems that you are the eldest disciple that the palace master brought back. However, I have to tell you in advance that my heavenly peak demon palace adheres to the law of the jungle. The higher you want to stand, the more ability you have. Mo Ling stood up, stared at Zhuowen, and said loudly, "We didn't see your ability, but you sat on the position of the head disciple. So, if you want to live up to your title as the head disciple, then accept my challenge." "You want to challenge me?" Zhuowen asked indifferently. Chapter 941. Demonic Tao of Massacre Scared? Zhuowen shook his head and continued, "When Mo Ying provoked me, I broke his limbs and crippled his cultivation. Now that you, Mo Ling, have come to provoke me, what will you do if you lose?" Mo Ling was stunned and sneered, "You're saying that Mo Ying was crippled by you? What a joke. Do you think you can intimidate me with just your words? I'm asking you, what will you do if you lose?" Zhuowen stared coldly at Mo Ling with his scarlet eyes, causing the latter to shiver. "What else can I do? Naturally, the position of first disciple and entrance examination will belong to you again," Mo Ling replied coldly. Zhuowen smirked and said, "They belong to me anyway. How about this, if you lose, you'll pay with your life." After saying that, Zhuowen made his move. His right hand stomped on the air and pressed down. Suddenly, boundless blood qi gathered in the air and formed a huge bloody hand. It was like a mountain that crushed down on the demonic spirit below. Mo Ling was startled. He didn't expect that Zhuowen would attack him like that. He roared angrily and formed a seal with both hands. Waves of black dead spirits gushed out from his body, turning into thousands of feet-tall dead spirit phantoms that rushed towards Bloodhand without any hesitation. "You're just a facade." Zhuowen's voice rang out again. Then, the bloody hand grabbed the huge dead spirit shadow and squeezed it. The dead spirit shadow didn't even let out a groan before it shattered into countless pieces. Boom! The bloody hand fell from the sky and covered Mo Ling. Then, the entire heavenly devil square trembled violently. The bloody hand slammed on the ground and formed a huge palm print. Mo Ying's figure disappeared completely. At this moment, the entire heavenly devil square fell into dead silence. Mo Ling was the second genius of Tianfeng Demon Palace and had just advanced to the Xuanzuan realm a month ago. He was a rising star and genius of Tianfeng Demon Palace. However, such a genius was easily killed by a single palm strike. Looking at Zhuowen's appearance, it was as if killing this demon spirit was no different from killing an ant. There was not the slightest expression on his face. The blood qi around Zhuowen slowly dissipated. His blood-red hair and eyes also returned to normal. It was obvious that Zhuowen had left his demonic state. The demonic Tao of Massacre is very powerful. The increase in strength is even more terrifying than my demonic Tao of Ice. I really don't know how powerful you'll be when you reach the Emperor realm. Demon Daoist Editor, Mod Laws 123. His demonic Tao of Massacre was actually already very powerful, but Zhuowen's demonic Tao of Massacre was much more tyrannical than his demonic Tao of Massacre. It was a demonic Tao of Massacre was massacre. Was the demonic Tao of Massacre? It was demonic Tao of Massacre. It was demonic Tao of Massacre was a demonic Tao of Massacre. Master Demon could even foresee that if this young man continued down this demonic path, he would eventually create a monstrous sea of blood. This was because this demonic path was destined to require one to step over mountains of corpses and seas of blood in order to reach perfection. However, Master Demon didn't expect that Zhuowen would have the Buddha demon eye. Therefore, it was impossible for Zhuowen to lose himself in the demonic slaughter Tao. The devil Tao was the master of slaughter while the Buddha guarded the heart. Everything was about balance. With the control of the Buddha devil eye, Zhuowen would only fight according to his heart. He wouldn't be dominated by slaughter because of the devil Tao. Palace Master. This person is too audacious. He actually dared to kill a fellow disciple in the heavenly devil square. This person is unfilial and should be executed. The remaining 6 members of the demonized 7 recovered from their shock and revealed expressions of grief and indignation. Mo Ling was their big brother. Ever since the 7 of them had joined the Heavenly Peak Devil Palace, they had supported and helped each other. Their relationship was quite deep. Now, as the big brother of the demonized 7, Mo Ling had been slapped to death by Zhuowen. The remaining 6 naturally resented Zhuowen in their hearts. They wanted nothing more than for Zhuowen to be buried with Mo Ling. Zhuowen's gaze was as calm as water. He said to Master Demon, that Mo Ling clearly said that your Heavenly Peak Devil Palace follows the law of the jungle. I'm strong and he's weak, but he recklessly provoked me. Doesn't he deserve to die? Master Demon, what do you think? Zhuowen's words caused the 6 people to become even more furious. At the same time, their gazes landed on Master Demon. They knew that the only one who could uphold justice for their big brother was Master Demon. Zhuowen is right. Mo Ling deserved to die. What's the point of you pestering him endlessly? If you have the ability, you can seek revenge on Zhuowen. I won't stop you. Master Demon said coldly. As soon as these words were spoken, the 6 of them went silent. Asking the 6 of them to seek revenge from Zhuowen was no different than courting death. After all, Zhuowen's slap was enough to kill an expert of the Xuanzuan realm like Mo Ling. Even if the 6 of them joined forces, it would be like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this moment, the 5 heavenly sovereigns led by Xiang Tianzuan rushed out of the palace where Zhuowen was in seclusion. They surrounded Zhuowen respectfully. Master Demon. Let's set off now. I'm afraid that the other 4 people from Yang City should also be heading to Yang City. Zhuowen said indifferently. Master Demon nodded and brought Zhuowen to the Heavenly Peak Devil Palace. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with hope. Finally, Zhuowen was going to enter the excellent Divine Academy. According to Master Demon, the excellent Divine Academy was recruiting disciples for the outer court. Aside from the outer court, the excellent Divine Academy also had a mysterious inner court. Zhuowen didn't know whether Mu Chunxue would be in the outer court or the inner court. However, he was very clear about Mu Chunxue's talent. In addition, she had entered the excellent Divine Academy a few years earlier than him. It was possible for her to enter the inner court. Zhuowen didn't care too much about this. He knew that as long as he entered the outer court, he would enter the inner court sooner or later. Although he didn't know the requirements to enter the inner court, he was still confident in his talent. I wonder how the cold poison in Mu Chunxue's body is doing? Zhuowen muttered in a low voice. There was a trace of worry in his voice. Although Xiao Hei said that the 7-colored phoenix fire could suppress the cold poison for 3 years, this was only Xiao Hei's estimate. The outbreak of the cold poison could be brought forward or delayed. Therefore, Zhuowen had to fuse the heavenly fire as soon as possible. Currently, Zhuowen had a total of 8 types of earth fire. Apart from the previous 7, the sun fire in the divine sun furnace wasn't any weaker than the earth fire. In fact, it was much stronger than the earth fire. Therefore, Zhuowen could use the fire fusion art to fuse the sun fire with the other 7 types of earth fire. Fusing 8 types of earth fire wasn't as difficult as imagined. However, 9 was an extreme number. Once the number of earth fire reached 9, the incompatibility would be magnified without limit. The flames would also mutate and deviate from the category of heavenly fire. Back then, Elder Shiyuan had already tried it, but failed. This was also the point that Zhuowen was most worried about. Fortunately, Elder Shiyuan had given Zhuowen a suggestion. That was to find a 1,000-fold fossil as a catalyst. Perhaps, he might be able to fuse the heavenly fire. Elder Shiyuan had also mentioned that the lead to the 1,000-fold fossil was in the possession of the chief arcanist of the Divine Sun Academy, Mu Feng. In addition to the Holy Ice Fire Talisman, Zhuowen had to enter the Divine Sun Academy. Soon, Demon Daoist, Zhuowen, and the others arrived at Yang City. At this moment, Yang City was exceptionally lively. Moreover, all the cultivators in Yang City were rushing towards the Yang Huang Plaza in the center of Yang City. This was because the Flame Emperor was preparing to bring 5 monstrous geniuses to the outer court of the Divine Sun Academy to participate in the entrance exam. This exam was related to the honor of the Yangxian Empire. After all, there were many powers like the Yangxian Empire in the eastern lands. Those powers would also send their top geniuses to participate in the entrance exam of the Divine Sun Academy. If the geniuses of the Yangxian Empire performed well in the exam, the reputation of the Yangxian Empire would naturally improve. This was an indelible benefit to the development of the empire. Let's go to the Yang Huang Plaza. The teleportation array to the outer court of the Divine Sun Academy is located in the Yang Huang Plaza. Demon Daoist said to Zhuowen. Zhuowen naturally had no objections. Soon, their group arrived at the Yang Huang Plaza. At this moment, the plaza was surrounded by a sea of people. Basically, all of them were cultivators who came to watch the show. In addition, Zhuowen discovered that there were 2 groups that had arrived in the plaza. Zhuowen was very familiar with one of the groups. Zhuowen was also familiar with the people in the group. It was actually the group from the Clear Void Valley. The leader was Qing Shuzi, and Zui Qingfeng was silently following behind him. Qing Shuzi and Zui Qingfeng naturally also noticed Demon Daoist and Zhuowen's group. Their faces twitched. Back then, Zhuowen had caused their Clear Void Valley to suffer miserably. He even robbed their Clear Void Valley, causing them to suffer heavy losses. However, the 2 of them were a little surprised that Demon Daoist would actually bring Zhuowen along. Could it be that he was planning to give the Devil Shadow spot to Zhuowen? Zhuowen didn't pay any attention to Zui Qingfeng and Qing Shuzi's unfriendly expressions. Instead, his gaze was placed on the other group. This group was completely made up of women. Moreover, these women all had light veils covering their faces, making them look rather mysterious. At the front of the group was a woman with a graceful figure. Her posture was graceful, just like a water snake. Every movement of hers was filled with charm and seduction. When Zhuowen first saw her, he was stunned for a while before regaining his senses. That's Xian Xing from the Myriad Star Palace. She's a peerless beauty and has the title of the #1 beauty in the Yangxian Empire. Her strength can't be underestimated. She's even above Zui Qingfeng and Devil Shadow. She's a true monstrous genius. Demon Daoist introduced her to Zhuowen. Zhuowen nodded his head. He naturally knew about the Myriad Star Palace. It was also one of the 5 great factions in Yang City. It was said that this faction was the most low-key and mysterious one among the 5 great factions. Moreover, the geniuses that they nurtured were all famous experts. The arrival of Demon Daoist with Zhuowen and 5 great heavenly sovereigns immediately attracted everyone's attention. When the crowd saw that the 6 people beside Zhuowen were all heavenly sovereign experts, they were all stunned. Soon after, an uproar broke out. 6 great heavenly sovereign experts. Such a terrifying lineup wasn't something that an ordinary faction could take out. Among the 5 great factions, only the imperial family had such a foundation. Chapter 942. The Flame Emperor and Mo Lingtian. They are from the Celestial Peak Devil Palace. I remember that the Celestial Peak Devil Palace only has 1 heavenly venerate expert, the demon Daoist. How come there are suddenly 5 more heavenly venerates? Also, isn't the genius of the celestial peak Devil Palace Missouri Ying? Who is this person? A young girl beside Xian Xing asked doubtfully. Xian Xing's beautiful eyes flashed slightly, but her gaze was focused on the young man in the middle of the 6 heavenly venerates. She realized that whether it was the demon Daoist or Zhang Tianzuan's group of 5, they all seemed to be faintly centered around this young man. Xiao Yuan, do you know a young man who has been rumored in Yang City recently? Xian Xing suddenly asked softly. The girl named Xiao Yuan exclaimed in surprise and nodded. Of course I have. It is said that a monstrous genius suddenly appeared in Yang City. Not only did he destroy the Shaoyang family, even Zui Qingfeng and Mo Ying were no match for him. This monstrous genius is called Zhuowen. Speaking up to here, the girl seemed to have realized something. Her beautiful eyes stared fixedly at the young man and said, "Senior sister, you mean that this young man surrounded by 6 heavenly venerates is the Zhuowen who has been the talk of Yang City recently?" Xian Xing nodded and said, "Definitely. At that time, Zui Qingfeng used the 9 autumn's wind to escape, and Mo Ying was unfortunately crippled by this Zhuowen. I believe that with this Zhuowen's character, he will not let go of Mo Ying's spot. So he is Zhuowen. But he is so young. He looks to be around 20 years old, a few years younger than Zui Qingfeng and Mo Lingtian. Moreover, he is quite handsome." Xiao Yuan's large eyes stared unblinkingly at Zhuowen as she giggled. Xian Xing shook her head and said, "Xiao Yuan, don't keep staring at him. According to the rumors, this Zhuowen is a devil who kills without batting an eyelid. If he gets angry, he might not let you off." Little Yuan stuck out her tongue and giggled, "I know. Speaking of which, senior sister, according to the rumors, this Zhuowen is said to be a monstrous genius comparable to Prince Mo Lingtian. Moreover, he is so young and not ugly. Senior sister, aren't you tempted?" Xian Xing shook her head, her beautiful eyes were filled with indifference as she continued, "What I pursue is the peak of the martial path. Hence, the strength of my other half has to far surpass me. Mo Lingtian from the royal clan doesn't have this qualification, and neither does this Zhuowen." Little Yuan pursed her lips and said, "Senior sister, Mo Lingtian is the strongest genius in the Yangxian Empire. At your age, it's basically impossible for there to be someone whose strength surpasses yours, right? The eastern lands are vast and boundless. Even the number of geniuses in the outer courtyard of Jioshan Academy is uncountable. Among them, there are many who are stronger than me. Little Yuan, how do you know that at my age, there isn't anyone who is stronger than me?" Xian Xing continued to speak in an indifferent tone. "Even if I'm far better than you, there should be a standard, right? Senior sister, your words are too general." Little Yuan's eyes rolled as she spoke. Xian Xing was a little helpless. The eccentric junior sister beside her raised her head slightly, her beautiful eyes gazing into the distance as she softly said, "Only those who possess the disposition of an emperor before the age of 25 are truly exceptional geniuses. Senior sister, your requirements are really harsh. Those who can advance to the heavenly venerate realm before the age of 25 are already geniuses amongst geniuses. It's even more difficult to advance from the heavenly venerate realm to the emperor realm. I'm afraid it's very difficult to reach the emperor realm before the age of 25, right?" Little Yuan shook her head helplessly. Her senior sister had a cold and arrogant personality, but she was also devastatingly beautiful. Countless young geniuses in Yang City had pursued her, but it was a pity that they had all returned in defeat. This was because Xian Xing's requirements for her other half were too high and too harsh. Otherwise, how can he be called a genius? Xian Xing said indifferently. Zhuowen naturally didn't know anything about the conversation between Xian Xing and Little Yuan. Now, he was silently waiting for the Flame Emperor. In his heart, he was already yearning for Yu Jiao Academy. At the same time, he was also a little nervous because entering Yu Jiao Academy meant that he was one step closer to Mu Chunxue. Not long after, another team swept over. This team's style was also very distinct. They were all burly men with bulging muscles. Their bodies were sturdy like giant beasts. This is another super force in Yang City, the Five Elements sect. The young man at the front is the Five Elements sect's genius, Q2. He's the son of the Five Elements sect's sect master. His talent is also very terrifying. Demon Daozi said to Zhuowen. Q2 was extremely sturdy. He was over 3 meters tall and felt like a crane among a flock of chickens. The Five Elements sect's sect master was half a head shorter than Q2. Only the imperial family is left. Zhuowen murmured. His heart was filled with hope. Not long after, 2 figures flew out from the palace at the center of Yang City. One of them was a mighty middle-aged man dressed in a fiery red robe. Every movement of this middle-aged man faintly revealed a trace of the luxurious aura of an emperor. Flame Emperor? Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and stared at the middle-aged man. This wasn't the first time he had seen an Emperor Realm warrior. Naturally, he was very familiar with the Flame Emperor's aura. It was the unique aura of an Emperor Realm warrior. The young man beside the Flame Emperor was about 23 years old. He wore a blue brocade robe and had a warm smile on his face. The aura on his body was extremely powerful. However, what surprised Zhuowen was that this young man's skin was snow-white and delicate. His face was as delicate as porcelain, giving Zhuowen an illusion of beauty. At this moment, Zhuowen realized that the words that should have been used on women were more suitable for the young man in front of him. This was because the young man was even more beautiful and enchanting than a woman. This kind of temperament should not appear on a man at all. This devilishly beautiful man was the imperial family's genius, Mo Lingtian. It was said that his cultivation had reached the sovereign realm and his strength was extremely terrifying. If it wasn't for Zhuowen's sharp senses that Mo Lingtian had an Adam's apple protruding from his neck, he would have suspected that Mo Lingtian was a woman in disguise. Perhaps because he noticed Zhuowen's strange gaze, Mo Lingtian tilted his head slightly. His beautiful eyes met with Zhuowen's and the corners of his mouth curled up. He revealed a smile that could captivate all living things, causing Zhuowen to be absent-minded for a moment. Instantly regaining his senses, Zhuowen stared at Mo Lingtian with some fear. It seemed that this Mo Lingtian wasn't ordinary. There was actually a trace of enchanting effect in his smile. At the same time, Zhuowen couldn't help but imagine that if this Mo Lingtian appeared on Earth, he would probably become the idol of countless people. This was because this fellow was the type that attracted both men and women. 6 great heavenly sovereigns. How interesting. Mo Lingtian naturally retracted his gaze and muttered in a low voice. Lingtian, that young man is called Zhuowen. He's not a simple character. The Flame Emperor, who was beside Mo Lingtian, also noticed Zhuowen not far away and said meaningfully. Mo Lingtian was startled and immediately said, "So it's that Zhuowen." Recently, there have been many rumors about this Zhuowen in Yang City. However, Father, you actually said that he's not simple. Could it be that this Zhuowen has an extraordinary background? Father will tell you later. However, the time isn't right yet. The Flame Emperor shook his head and left Mo Lingtian in suspense. The latter was a little surprised and couldn't help but pay more attention to Zhuowen. Mo Lingtian's frequent glances made Zhuowen feel a chill in his heart. He secretly complained that he didn't have that kind of fetish. And Zhuowen's reaction made Mo Lingtian feel puzzled. Why is this Zhuowen constantly avoiding my gaze like a woman? Your Majesty, the Flame Emperor. When the Flame Emperor and Mo Lingtian arrived in the sky above the square, countless warriors in the surroundings bowed respectfully. Their eyes were filled with reverence. They naturally had to show respect to the true masters of the Yang Xian Empire. The Flame Emperor nodded his head and immediately looked at the teams of the other 4 forces that had arrived in the square below. He said, "Today is the day of departure for the assessment of the Jioshan Academy. I believe that the other 4 participating geniuses are all excited, right?" When the Flame Emperor said this, Zui Qingfeng and Q2 clenched their fists in excitement. Even Xian Xing was a little nervous. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with hope. However, before we depart, I heard that the demon shadow of the Heaven Peak Demon Palace was crippled by someone 3 months ago. Who do you intend to replace the demon shadow? The Flame Emperor glanced at Zhuowen and asked the Demon Dao. Demon Dao lowered his head and said respectfully, "I have already chosen the candidate." The one beside me is called Zhuowen. He has just joined the Heaven Peak Devil Palace and his strength is outstanding. Therefore, he is the best candidate to replace the demon shadow. So you are called Zhuowen. However, this emperor had once heard of a young man called Zhuowen. Unfortunately, that young man wasn't a member of my Yangxian Empire, but an existence in the top 5 of the Azure Emperor rankings of the Azure Xian Empire. Moreover, that Zhuowen of the Azure Xian Empire was extraordinary. It was said that he killed the genius of the Azure Xian Empire's imperial family, Huangfu Wudao. When the Flame Emperor said this, countless people's gazes gathered on Zhuowen. They knew that the Flame Emperor's words were not without reason. In other words, it was very likely that this person was from the Qing Xian Empire. However, what surprised them was that Zhuowen had actually killed the crown prince of the Qing Xian Empire, Huangfu Wudao. He was really daring. Wasn't he afraid that the Qing Emperor would blame him? Zhuowen's pupils shrank. It seemed that the Flame Emperor knew him well. He said indifferently, "Your Majesty, what do you mean?" The smile on the Flame Emperor's face was still warm as he continued, "This Zhuowen is really audacious. Killing the crown prince was just a small prelude. This person even dared to face the Qing Emperor directly. Moreover, he killed 5 heavenly masters of the imperial family in a demonic state. Among them were peak heavenly masters, but they all died at the hands of Zhuowen. Wow! Finally, everyone in the square was in an uproar. Zhuowen had actually killed 5 heavenly masters. According to the Flame Emperor, Zhuowen was only a genius of the younger generation. He was only in his 20s, but he was able to kill 5 heavenly masters. What a magnificent feat! Xian Xing was also shocked. Killing heavenly masters was an extremely inconceivable thing to her. Therefore, her gaze stopped for the first time on the young man who was surrounded by 6 heavenly masters. Could the Zhuowen that the Flame Emperor was talking about be this young man? Or did they just have the same name? Mo Lingtian was also interested. He knew that his father had previously emphasized that Zhuowen was not simple. Now that the Flame Emperor had mentioned Zhuowen of the Qing Xian Empire, he couldn't help but connect the two together. It is said that Zhuowen forced the Qing Emperor to use his full strength in a demonic state. The two of them fought fiercely. Chapter 943. 9 Stars of the Void. Teleportation Void Emperor Qing was the strongest person in the Qing Xian Empire and was a legendary Emperor realm expert. He was on par with the Flame Emperor of the Yang Xian Empire. However, the Zhuowen that the Flame Emperor spoke of was able to fight Emperor Qing even though he had yet to reach the Emperor realm. After a long period of silence, everyone in the Yang Huang Square, including the people from the 5 superforces, looked at the young man who was surrounded by the 6 holy masters. The young man that the Flame Emperor spoke of was called Zhuowen, and the monstrous talent that had suddenly risen in Yang City was also called Zhuowen. They seemed to have guessed something. Senior sister, that Zhuowen's level of freakishness really meets your standards. Moreover, he is even more terrifying. He has yet to reach the Emperor realm, but he has the ability to fight against an Emperor realm expert. Xiao Yuan regained her senses and suddenly teased Xian Xing. Xian Xing nodded his head and also regained his senses. He said calmly, "He is indeed monstrous." However, the Flame Emperor also said that this lad borrowed the power of the demon to reach the Emperor realm. He did not rely on his own talent at all. At most, this person has monstrous means. Looking at Xian Xing's stubborn look, Xiao Yuan pursed her lips but did not refute. She knew Xian Xing's character very well. Once he had set his mind on something, even 10 bulls would not be able to pull him back. Mo Lingtian's beautiful eyes looked at Zhuowen with great interest. His heart was also shocked. If what the Flame Emperor said was true, then this young man called Zhuowen was really monstrous. Emperor realm experts were simply unreachable stars to him. Even though his cultivation had reached the supremacy realm, he was still as insignificant as an ant in front of an Emperor realm expert. Perhaps, an Emperor realm expert would only need a single move to kill him. However, this Zhuowen was actually able to fight against an existence like Emperor Qing. This was simply unimaginable. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. Although the Qing Xian Empire and the Yang Xian Empire were not far from each other, the territories of the two empires were extremely vast. Passing through one empire was an extremely large distance. However, the Yang Emperor was actually able to know so much about what was happening in the Qing Xian Empire. It seemed that his intelligence was quite terrifying. The Flame Emperor's smile was still warm as he continued, "Now, there is a monstrous talent called Zhuowen in the Yang city of the Yang Xian Empire. I wonder if these two people are the same person?" This question was directed at Zhuowen. The Flame Emperor was Zhuowen. Zhuowen was Zhuowen. The Emperor's voice Emperor Yang Xian was Yang's Mo Lingtian. The Yang Xian Xian Xingtian was Xian. The past is just a passing cloud. Now, I am Zhuowen, a disciple of the Tianfeng demonic palace in the Yang city of the Yang Xian Empire. I am representing the Yang Xian Empire to participate in the Jioshan Academy's entrance examination, Zhuowen said with a faint smile. The Flame Emperor was stunned. Soon after, he secretly praised Zhuowen's intelligence. He nodded his head and said, "Yes. You are now Zhuowen, a disciple of the Tianfeng demonic palace in the Yang city of the Yang Xian Empire. You are representing the glory of the Yang Xian Empire in the Jioshan Academy. I am looking forward to your performance." The conversation between Zhuowen and the Flame Emperor confused the others in the square. However, some of the sharper ones were able to catch some important information. "Since the 5 of you are here, I will bring you to the outer yard. However, before we depart, I have to warn you that the geniuses participating in the examination come from various powerful forces in the Eastern Land. There are many forces that are much stronger than the Yang Xian Empire. Moreover, the geniuses sent by those powerful forces are far from what you can imagine. They are truly monstrous geniuses. You may be the top geniuses in the Yang Xian Empire, but when you go out, you will discover that you are nothing." Speaking until here, the Flame Emperor cautioned them seriously. After all, he was an Emperor realm expert and had naturally traveled outside before. In the vast Eastern Land, even an Emperor realm expert like him was nothing. Therefore, he said these words to let the 5 geniuses be mentally prepared in advance. As expected, the vast Yangxian and Qingxian imperial empires are just an insignificant corner of the Eastern Lands. The outside world is much larger and more exciting than these 2 imperial empires. Hearing the Flame Emperor's advice, Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He knew that if he wanted to pursue a higher realm and greater power, he had to go out and become a world-shaking expert. He would only be a weakling if he stayed in a corner. Xian Xing, Zui Qingfeng, and Q2 were extremely excited. Clearly, they were looking forward to a bigger world, more monstrous geniuses, and more intense battles. All of these could stir their blood. On the other hand, Mo Lingtian was much calmer. After all, he was a direct descendant of the Flame Emperor. He knew more about the outside world than the others. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He suddenly stepped out and cupped his hands. "Your Majesty, the Flame Emperor, these 5 are my slaves. I wonder if I can bring them to the Fine Gods Academy." Whoosh! Hearing Zhuowen's words, everyone in the square looked at Zhuowen in shock. They even suspected that they had misheard. The 5 heavenly masters were actually Zhuowen's slaves. Originally, when Ziyang Tianzuan and the other 4 surrounded Zhuowen, everyone thought that they were subordinates sent by Zhuowen's elders to protect Zhuowen. The 2 of them had an equal relationship. But slaves weren't equal at all. Slaves couldn't disobey their master's orders. Even if their master ordered them to commit suicide, they couldn't resist. Heavenly masters had actually become the slaves of a supreme being junior. This fact was too crazy in everyone's eyes. Even Xian Xing and the others were shocked. Their eyes were filled with a strange light. Those were 5 heavenly master slaves. That was a terrifying force. The Flame Emperor pondered for a moment and said, "Actually, it's normal to bring people from your family to participate in the examination. However, once you enter the outer court, you're not allowed to bring people who aren't from the academy. Otherwise, you'll be expelled." "I can't enter the Fine Gods Academy?" Zhuowen frowned. In fact, placing the 5 heavenly masters in the Azure Dragon Hall was the safest method. However, Zhuowen only had 2 chances to enter the Azure Dragon Hall now. As for the second chance, Zhuowen planned to enter the Azure Dragon Hall when his cultivation reached the Heavenly Master Realm. He was only in the Supreme Being realm now. Naturally, he wouldn't waste such a rare opportunity. However, it's said that the outer court has an arcane tower. Inside it are all arcanists recruited by the Fine Gods Academy. Arcanists are actually qualified to bring their slaves into the arcane tower and the outer court, the Flame Emperor said indifferently. Arcane tower? Thank you, Your Majesty. Zhuowen's eyes flickered as he cupped his hands once again. The Flame Emperor nodded and continued, the 5 of you, step out. This Emperor is about to activate the teleportation array. This array will teleport you to the outer court. When the time comes, we'll need to borrow some tools to rush to the outer court. As the Flame Emperor spoke, he slowly rose into the air. A terrifying aura surged out, forming an endless hurricane around him. The might of an emperor was fully displayed, causing reverence to rise in everyone's hearts. As for Mo Lingtian, Xian Xing, Zui Qingfeng, Q2, and Zhuo Wen, the 5 of them, under the envious gazes of countless people in the square, took a step forward and flew into the air. Zhuo Wen naturally had 5 Empyreans behind him to protect him. As for Xian Xing, Zui Qingfeng, and Q2, they were also accompanied by the leaders of their respective forces. For example, Qing Shuzi of the Clear Void Valley, Daoist Wn Xing of the Myriad Star Palace, and Buq of the 5 Elements sect. However, their numbers weren't as exaggerated as Zhuowen's. 9 stars of the void, teleport to the void. The Flame Emperor's majestic voice reverberated in the square. Then, everyone was shocked to find that the space thousands of miles above them had collapsed, forming an invisible stairway to heaven. The stairway to heaven was derived from the end of the void. The end of the stairway was even more illusory and dark. No one could see what was at the end of the stairway. Step onto the stairway to heaven. The Flame Emperor's voice rang out again, stirring the hearts of Mo Lingtian, Zhuowen, and the others. Let's go. Mo Lingtian was the first to step onto the stairway to heaven. In an instant, he was thousands of miles away. This stairway to heaven is the void technique. It has truly reached the level of thousands of miles in one step. Xiang Tianzuan, who was beside Zhuowen, exclaimed. The void technique. Zhuowen muttered in a low voice. It seemed that the principle of this teleportation array should be the use of the so-called void technique. Let's go up too, Zhuowen said. Following closely behind Mo Lingtian, he took a step forward. Then, Zhuowen felt the wind around him rumble. It was as if they were shuttling through space. In an instant, they appeared thousands of miles away. The void technique allowed one to travel thousands of miles in one step. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with amazement. He took another step forward and turned into a ray of light. He disappeared above the void and swept towards the unknown end of the stairway. The 5 holy sovereigns followed closely behind. With Mo Lingtian and Zhuowen taking the lead, Zui Qingfeng, Xian Xing, Q2, and the others did not want to be outdone. They took a step forward and turned into rays of light. Very quickly, they disappeared into the void. Then, the Flame Emperor also stepped onto the stairway. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared before everyone's eyes. Then, the illusory stairway to heaven slowly disappeared as the Flame Emperor left. In a short while, the entire void returned to normal. However, everyone in the square sighed. The void technique in this teleportation array was really magical. One step could travel thousands of miles. Stepping on the stairway to heaven, Zhuowen shuttled through the void. Countless suns, moons, and stars streaked past him. Even if Zhuowen was walking slowly, his speed was still extremely terrifying. The surrounding suns, moons, and stars turned into light spots under this terrifying speed. At this moment, in Zhuowen's eyes, it was a unique and beautiful scenery. I wonder how long it will take to reach the end of this void tunnel. Zhuowen muttered. Only half a day. At that time, we will reach the shore of the Sea of Bitterness. If we want to cross the Sea of Bitterness, we will have to take the boundless sailboat to reach the outer court of Fine God Academy. Chapter 944. Sea of Bitterness. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes as he looked at the Flame Emperor beside him. He felt that the Flame Emperor's attitude towards him was different. Furthermore, the Flame Emperor seemed to know everything about him in the Qing Empire. Perhaps the Flame Emperor noticed the confusion on Zhuowen's face. He smiled faintly and said, "I know that you are curious as to why I know you so well, right?" Zhuowen nodded and didn't say anything. He stared at the Flame Emperor and waited for him to continue. The relationship between the Yangxian Empire and the Qingxian Empire isn't very good. You should know this as well. Moreover, the two empires would often have small conflicts. However, they are all harmless small-scale battles. Both sides are still in the stage of probing each other. It is precisely because of this probing that both empires will send spies to secretly hide in the empires to gather information. When you rose to power in the imperial capital as a commoner, I had already noticed you. The Flame Emperor sighed as he said this. He had specially investigated Zhuowen's background back then. He was actually from a lowly clan in a low-level city. I don't need to say what happened after that. Your rise was very fast and very shocking. The 5 holy venerables behind you are the 5 holy venerables of the Qingxian Empire's royal family, right? The Flame Emperor glanced meaningfully at the 5 celestial venerables behind Zhuowen. Zhuowen nodded and said, "It seems that the Flame Emperor knows me well. I'm flattered. I don't know you in detail. It is just a rough estimate. After all, the two empires aren't as close as you think. However, the sensational things you did back then were really unbelievable," the Flame Emperor continued. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. "Your Majesty Flame Emperor, I believe that a martial emperor like you wouldn't be speaking so casually to a venerable junior like me, right? Haha. You are indeed a smart person. Now that you have completely fallen out with the Qingxian Empire, I'm afraid that the Azure Emperor will not let you off. Now that you are representing my Yangxian Empire to participate in the Jioshan Academy's outer court exam." At this point, the Flame Emperor did not finish his sentence. He knew that Zhuowen was a smart person and naturally knew what he was going to say next. Zhuowen shook his head decisively and said, "If your Majesty wants me to join the Yangxian Empire, then forget it. However, if your Majesty the Flame Emperor wants to take down the Qingxian Empire, I will definitely do my best to help your Yangxian Empire once I have achieved something in the academy." Zhuowen's words were watertight. First, he tactfully rejected the Flame Emperor's request to join the Yangxian Empire. Then, he promised to help the Yangxian Empire in dealing with the Qingxian Empire in the future, giving the Flame Emperor a way out. The Flame Emperor's eyes revealed a trace of pity, but he wasn't too disappointed. He knew that a genius like Zhuowen was destined to not be content with staying in one corner. His previous question was just to test him. Zhuowen had high awareness and took the initiative to say that he would help the Yangxian Empire to take down the Qingxian Empire after he had achieved something in the academy. After all, the two empires were too close to each other. If a conflict erupted in the future, there would definitely be a war. With a monstrous genius like Zhuowen joining, the Flame Emperor believed that the success rate of taking down the Qingxian Empire would be extremely high. Zhuowen, with your potential and talent, the speed of your rise should be very fast. I believe that the Qingxian Empire's destruction won't be too far away, the Flame Emperor said with a smile. Zhuowen cursed in his heart for being a sly old fox, but he didn't reject the Flame Emperor's suggestion. Even if the Flame Emperor didn't say it, Zhuowen would return to the Qingxian Empire in the future when he was strong enough to go against the Azure Emperor. Now that he had the Flame Emperor's cooperation, the pressure on Zhuowen would be greatly reduced. This was a win-win proposition, so why wouldn't he accept it? Your Majesty the Flame Emperor, when the time comes for the outer yard assessment, the Azure Emperor should be there too, right? Zhuowen asked with a cold gaze. The Flame Emperor nodded and said, "Of course. Without the means and protection of the Emperor realm, it's impossible to activate this void formation. However, I think it's better for you to change your appearance during the assessment. The Azure Emperor isn't a good person. If you're caught, I won't be able to save you even if I intervene." Hearing this, Zhuowen's eyes flickered, and he nodded. His facial muscles immediately wriggled, and he turned into a sickly youth with a sallow complexion. Even his sharp aura became sickly, and it was impossible to tell that this person was actually the Zhuowen who had shown off his ability. What a strange secret technique. Even his aura has completely changed. The Flame Emperor raised his eyebrows and muttered in surprise. The two of them chatted in the void passageway as they moved forward slowly. It seemed slow, but in the blink of an eye, they had traversed thousands of miles. During the conversation, Zhuowen had a rough understanding of the Jioshan Academy's entrance examination. He also had a certain understanding of the entire Eastern Land. It turned out that in the Eastern Land, there were countless imperial forces like the Qing Xian Empire and the Yang Xian Empire. The Yang Xian Empire and the Qing Xian Empire were the weaker forces among the many empires. Many of the more powerful empires had more than one emperor realm expert, but many of them. In addition to the imperial forces, there were many intricate sects and forces in the Eastern Land. These sects and forces were many times stronger than the few sects in the Yang Xian Empire. They were powerful existences comparable to the imperial forces and had extremely deep foundations. These countless powerful forces would fight to send their disciples into the Ninth Netherworld Realm every year. This was because the Ninth Netherworld Realm was the only place in the entire Eastern Land that had powerful saints. The Ninth Netherworld Realm was filled with endless mysteries. It also contained countless opportunities and luck. If one's talent wasn't too bad, the warriors who entered the Ninth Netherworld Realm could at least reach the Emperor Realm. Some of the stronger ones could even reach the Half-Saint Realm. Their might could dominate the world, and their names would spread throughout the world. The Ninth Netherworld Realm was the paradise of the Eastern Land's martial artists. The Jioshan Academy's outer court was the fastest shortcut for young martial artists to enter the Ninth Netherworld Realm. Of course, there were other ways to enter the Ninth Netherworld Realm other than the Jioshan Academy's outer court. However, these methods required a high price, and one's strength had to reach the Emperor Realm. This method was usually used by the old monsters of the major forces who wanted to enter the Ninth Netherworld Realm to gain experience. Young martial artists generally joined the Jioshan Academy's outer court and used the outer court as a medium to enter the Ninth Netherworld Realm. Moreover, from the Flame Emperor's words, Zhuowen keenly discovered that among the numerous forces outside the Ninth Netherworld Realm, there were 7 forces that were above all other forces. These 7 forces were the 4 great sacred dynasties and the 3 great sects. The 4 great sacred dynasties were the Alcade Sacred Dynasty, the Blue Whale Sacred Dynasty, the Divine Arm Sacred Dynasty, and the Burning Flame Sacred Dynasty. The 3 great sects were the Myriad Sword Sect, the Cold Moon Palace, and the Yellow Mystery Sect. These 7 forces had the deepest foundations outside the Ninth Netherworld Realm. They were also recognized as the 7 strongest forces by many forces. Moreover, it was said that these 7 forces were secretly controlled by the forces of the Ninth Netherworld Realm. The 4 great sacred dynasties, the 3 great sects, and the Jioshan Academy's outer court. Zhuowen's eyes flashed with a trace of excitement. This was the world that a martial artist should pursue. It was vast, powerful, and filled with experts. Half a day passed quickly. Soon, Zhuowen followed the Flame Emperor and stepped out of the void corridor. Then, a ray of blazing sunlight shone on them. Zhuowen couldn't help but squint his eyes. After a long time, he opened them again. What appeared in front of Zhuowen was a huge desert area. In this area, barren Gobi Desert could be seen everywhere, as well as old and dilapidated buildings that had been eroded away by the wind. Thousands of miles in front of this desert area, Zhuowen saw a boundless black ocean. The strange thing was that the black ocean was suspended thousands of miles high in the sky. Below the ocean was a misty black fog. The black fog was deep and serene, as if it could devour everything. It gave Zhuowen a terrifying feeling that made his hair stand on end. Behind Zhuowen, the sky stairway in the void began to slowly dissipate and eventually returned to its original appearance. Mo Lingtian, Xian Xing, and the others stood not far ahead and waited. At this moment, when they saw Zhuowen and the Flame Emperor come out, they all clustered around them. "You are Brother Zhuo?" Mo Lingtian looked at the sallow-faced youth in front of him, then looked at the 5 holy masters behind him and asked uncertainly. "He is indeed Zhuowen." However, in order to avoid some unnecessary trouble, he used a secret technique to change his appearance, the Flame Emperor explained with a smile. Mo Lingtian and the others nodded. They didn't think too much about this issue, nor did they ask about the so-called unnecessary trouble that the Flame Emperor had mentioned. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Zhuowen and the others were surprised to find that 7 void stairways had appeared in the sky above them. 7 teams stepped out of the void stairways. The 7 teams looked at each other fearfully, then distanced themselves from each other and flew towards the south. Their direction and purpose were obviously the same. They should be teams from other forces that have come to participate in the outer court assessment. Looking at the 7 teams that had left, the Flame Emperor said softly, "Let's go too. Thousands of miles away in the south, there is a barren ancient city. There, we can take the boundless sailboat to cross the Sea of Misery." So, this is the Sea of Misery. Zhuo Wen's eyes were filled with shock as he looked at the enormous black sea that hung in the sky. The size of the Sea of Misery had clearly exceeded his expectations. Mo Lingtian and the others' expressions weren't any better than Zhuo Wen's. "Your Majesty, can't we pass through the Sea of Misery directly? Must we take the boundless sailboat to cross the Sea of Misery?" Qing Shuzi, who was standing beside Zui Qingfeng, suddenly asked. The Flame Emperor shook his head and said, "The black fog under the Sea of Misery is called Hell by warriors. There is no return after entering it. Even an Emperor Realm expert will die after entering." Chapter 945. Desolate Ancient City. The ancient city of desolation, as its name suggested, was barren inside. Not even a blade of grass grew. The surface of the huge yellow walls that were hundreds of feet tall had cracks on them. It looked like it had existed for a very long time. Whoosh, whoosh. Numerous figures flashed past from afar, heading towards the desolate ancient city. Although the desolate ancient city was in a dilapidated state, it was bustling with people. It was many times larger and more prosperous than Yang City. Under the Flame Emperor's lead, Zhuowen and the rest also rushed towards the desolate ancient city. When they saw the huge crowd in the ancient city and the terrifying aura that was emitted from time to time, Zhuowen and the rest were stunned. They realized that the ancient city was filled with powerful auras of the 4 supremacy realm experts. There was even a majestic Emperor Qi among them. It was obvious that there were many martial emperors among them. When you enter the desolate ancient city, keep a low profile and don't cause trouble. The ancient desolate city is the only port in the Sea of Bitterness that leads to the outer court of the excellent Divine Academy. Furthermore, some of the powerful martial artists of the Eastern Lands, in order to go to the 9th Netherworld realm, also use the boundless sailboat in the ancient desolate city. Therefore, there are many powerful martial artists inside. Your strength might be considered top-notch in the Yangxian Empire, but in the desolate ancient city, you are nothing. Once you offend someone you shouldn't offend, it will be a disaster that will lead to your doom. The desolate ancient city was a terrifying place. Even a great emperor like the Flame Emperor didn't dare act recklessly in there. He had to be very careful. Mo Lingtian, Zhuowen, and the others all nodded. The Yang Emperor was right. There were indeed many experts in the ancient desolate city, and many of them had auras that they could not see through. Obviously, the cultivation of these warriors was much higher than theirs. As they approached the ancient city, Zhuowen suddenly discovered that the surroundings of the ancient city were shrouded in countless fine blue threads. These blue threads interweaved together to form a magnificent and strange pattern. This is a restriction. In the desolate ancient city, if there wasn't a powerful restriction to protect it, the Sea of Bitterness in front of it would create a tsunami and this huge ancient city wouldn't have survived until now. Perhaps because he saw the astonishment in the eyes of Zhuowen and the rest, the Flame Emperor explained patiently. Everyone nodded in understanding. It seemed like the seals of the desolate ancient city weren't ordinary. From the Flame Emperor's words, Zhuowen knew how terrifying the Bitter Sea was. Ordinary Emperor Realm experts wouldn't dare to touch the Bitter Sea casually. One could imagine how terrifying it was. After paying a certain amount of spirit stones, the Flame Emperor led Zhuowen and the others into the ancient city. The bustling scene of the ancient city was completely presented before everyone's eyes. Regardless of the number or quality of warriors, the The desolate ancient city was countless times better than Yang City. The core of the desolate ancient city was the huge tower that sat in the center of the ancient city. The surface of the tower was engraved with densely packed strange runes. These runes seemed to contain a powerful force. At the top of the tower, there were wisps of blue light condensing. These blue light soared into the sky and spread in all directions, forming a blue restriction around the ancient city. Obviously, the source of the restriction around the desolate ancient city was the central tower. There must be an arcanist with an extremely high cultivation in the tower, maintaining the restriction on the tower. The tower is called the Boundless Tower. It is the port where the boundless sailboat departs from. If we want to cross the Sea of Bitterness, we must depart from the Boundless Tower. Let's go to the Boundless Tower and see if we can cross the Sea of Bitterness on the boundless sailboat today. The Flame Emperor pointed at the central tower. He introduced it to Zhuowen and the others as he led them to the Boundless Tower. The Flame Emperor and his group naturally attracted the attention of many warriors on the way, especially when they saw the 5 young juniors behind the Flame Emperor. They all understood that this group of people was preparing to head to the outer court of the Divine Academy. After all, the outer court entrance examination of the Divine Academy was about to begin. Therefore, during this period of time, all the major forces of the Eastern Land brought their juniors to the desolate ancient city to cross the Sea of Bitterness on the boundless sailboat. Therefore, the surrounding warriors were not surprised. The Flame Emperor did not pay attention to the surrounding discussions. With his Emperor Realm aura, no one dared to provoke his group. After all, offending an Emperor Realm expert for no reason was not worth the loss. Soon, the Flame Emperor and his group arrived near the Boundless Tower. They saw that there were rows of small windows on the bottom floor of the Boundless Tower. Inside the small windows were warriors on the first floor of the tower. These warriors were probably receptionists because many warriors were near the windows and were discussing something with the warriors inside the windows. The Flame Emperor led Zhuowen and the others to an empty window. A tall and slender woman with a voluptuous figure was sitting at the window. She stared at the Flame Emperor and the people behind him indifferently and said, "You want to reserve the boundless sailboat?" "Yes. I wonder if the boundless sailboat can depart today?" The Flame Emperor nodded and asked. The woman shook her head and said indifferently, "We can't depart today. The earliest we can depart is tomorrow. Because tonight, the Sea of Bitterness will erupt with a huge tsunami that will last for the entire night. If you want to take the boundless sailboat, you can only book a ticket for tomorrow." The Sea of Bitterness is going to erupt with a tsunami tonight? The Flame Emperor frowned slightly and said, "Then book a ticket for tomorrow." The woman nodded and continued, "The boundless sailboat has a special class cabin, a first-class cabin, a second-class cabin, and a third-class cabin. Which cabin do you want to choose? What's the difference between the 4 cabins?" The Flame Emperor frowned slightly. It was his first time taking the boundless sailboat and he didn't know much about it. The woman stared at the Flame Emperor in surprise. Although there was a trace of impatience in her eyes, she reluctantly explained since the Flame Emperor was an Emperor Realm expert, 4th-class cabins naturally have different treatment. The higher the class cabin, the bigger the room space, and the more comprehensive the services provided. As she spoke, the woman pulled with her right hand and a light screen floated in front of the Flame Emperor and the others. The introduction of the 4 cabins and their respective prices are recorded here. Take a good look and let me know when you've made your choice. After the woman finished speaking, she ignored the Flame Emperor and the others. The Flame Emperor and the people behind him all looked at the light screen. However, after looking at it for a while, their faces turned ugly because the price of the boundless sailboat's cabin was so high that it was somewhat beyond their expectations. Take the 3rd-class cabin as an example. The ticket price for one person was 100,000 upper spiritual stones, the 2nd-class cabin was 300,000 upper spiritual stones, the 1st-class cabin was 500,000 upper spiritual stones, and the special-class cabin was 1,000,000 upper spiritual stones. With such a huge ticket price, even the Flame Emperor's face turned a little green. The force behind the boundless sailboat was too greedy. It was just a trip to the Sea of Bitterness, and they charged such a high price. 2 first-class tickets, please. The Flame Emperor's eyes flickered. With a wave of his sleeve, He took out a sparkling emerald crystal. The woman put away the green crystal, and her beautiful eyes revealed a trace of excitement. She nodded, took out 2 rather exquisite cards, and handed them to the Flame Emperor. Her tone also became much more polite. "These are 2 first-class tickets. My lord, please keep them well." After keeping the 2 tickets, the Flame Emperor pulled Mo Lingtian to the side and stared at the people behind him without saying a word. It was obvious that the Flame Emperor didn't intend to pay the fare for them. "What is that? 1 crystal is worth 1 million upper spiritual stones?" Zhuowen was a little surprised by the crystal that the Flame Emperor took out and muttered to himself. "That is a star crystal. It is formed from the power of the stars and contains extremely pure power of the stars. This thing can only be refined by an Emperor realm expert. However, His Majesty the Flame Emperor is only at the first Heaven Emperor realm. He can't refine many star crystals, so he won't take it out easily. This thing is very valuable. 1 star crystal is worth 1 million upper spiritual stones, and it's the kind that has a price but no market." Suddenly, Xianxing passed by Zhuowen and her clear voice rang in Zhuowen's mind. Looking at Xianxing's graceful back, Zhuowen knew that the owner of the voice should be Xianxing star crystal. This was the first time Zhuowen heard of this thing. However, it seemed that this thing was quite beneficial to warriors. "Boy, the star crystal is a good thing. If you can obtain enough star crystals, you can refine the power of the stars and experience the power of the stars. This can greatly increase your chances of advancing to the Emperor realm." Xiao Hei's voice rang in Zhuowen's mind again. However, there was a hint of hope in her voice. After the Flame Emperor bought the tickets, the 1,000-star palaces Xianxing and his elders, as well as the 5 elements sects Q2 and sect master Buq also bought tickets. However, the 1,000-star palace and the 5 elements sect were not as rich as the Flame Emperor and only bought second-class tickets. When it was Zui Qingfeng and Qing Shu's turn, Qing Shu's face was extremely ugly. This was because after their Qing Shu Valley was robbed by Zhuowen, they did not have many spiritual stones on them. 2 third-class tickets, please." Qing Shu's face turned red as he said this. The woman at the window looked at Qing Shuzi with some disdain. After taking Qing Shu's spiritual stones, she threw the 2 third-class tickets to Qing Shuzi. Perhaps because he felt the woman's disdainful gaze, Qing Shuzi took the tickets and went to the Flame Emperor's side dejectedly. However, he was cursing Zhuowen in his heart. If it were not for Zhuowen, they would not have been reduced to the point where they could only buy third-class tickets. When it was Zhuowen's turn, Zhuowen lazily handed a Qianquan bag to the woman at the window and said, 6 third-class tickets. 6. The woman was stunned. Then, she saw Ziyang Tianzuan and the other 4 standing behind Zhuowen. She nodded and took out 6 tickets and threw them to Zhuowen. Zhuowen casually accepted them and went to the Flame Emperor's side naturally. Chapter 946. Damaged Emperor Weapon. After purchasing the tickets, the Flame Emperor led everyone to an inn in the desolate ancient city. They were prepared to stay there for the night. As for the Divine Academy's outer court examination, it was said that the examination would last for half a month. Therefore, even if Zhuowen and the others did not make it on the first day of the examination, it was fine. After all, there was still half a month, so everyone was not particularly worried. What was worth noting was that the accommodation fee in the ancient desolate city was extremely expensive. It actually cost 5 high-grade spirit stones to stay for a night. Moreover, each room was extremely simple and crude. As for Zhuowen, because he had 5 celestial venerables with him, he had to pay 6 times the price. Fortunately, because Zhuowen had robbed the Shaoyang family clan and the Clear Void Valley, he was quite wealthy and did not feel any heartache. However, Qing Shuzi and Zui Qingfeng's faces were dark from beginning to end. In fact, after paying for the tickets, they did not have many spirit stones left. Now that the accommodation in the ancient desolate city was so expensive, the 2 of them naturally felt embarrassed. Helpless, the 2 of them resolutely booked a room under the strange gazes of the crowd and slept on the same bed in order to save spirit stones. After arranging their rooms, the Flame Emperor smiled at everyone and said, "The ancient desolate city is very big. There are many experts in it, and some experts will sell their useless things to earn some money. If you are interested, you can stroll around the streets of the ancient city. Who knows, you might be able to find some good things. The Flame Emperor's words were very obvious. After all, the ancient desolate city was not like the Yangxian Empire. There were even many Emperor Realm experts here. The useless things of these experts could be considered treasures to the 4 heavenly sovereigns. Therefore, they could try their luck. Hearing this, Zhuo Wen, Mo Lingtian, and the other members of the younger generation all revealed a bright light in their eyes. If they were able to find some good stuff here, it would definitely be extremely beneficial. Brother Zhuo, why don't we go shopping together? The devilishly beautiful Mo Lingtian walked in front of Zhuowen and revealed a faint smile as he said to Zhuowen. Looking at Mo Lingtian, who was more beautiful than a woman, Zhuowen felt a little strange. Perhaps it was because he knew too much in his previous life. Anyway, standing beside Mo Lingtian made Zhuowen feel uncomfortable. Brother Lingtian, you're too polite. I'm used to being alone. Zhuowen chuckled and hurriedly left the inn. The smile on Mo Lingtian's face froze. He touched his face and felt a little depressed. He felt that Zhuowen seemed to be avoiding him. Was he really that terrifying? Naturally, Zhuowen didn't know what Mo Lingtian was thinking. At this moment, he walked out of the inn and headed towards the southeast of the ancient city. Previously, the Flame Emperor had already told everyone the location of the stall, so Zhuowen didn't need to ask for directions and could reach the destination directly. In the southeast of the ancient barren city was an extremely huge and grand street. The width of the street alone was close to 100 meters, and its length was impossible to estimate. Anyway, from Zhuowen's angle, he couldn't see the end. All he could see was people coming and going. Everywhere on the street, there were stalls that were not small. Some of the larger stalls even had more domineering signboards in front of them, such as the 100 Treasures Pavilion, Hidden Gold House, Transforming Dragon Talk, and so on. In fact, they were just stalls in a small area. So many experts. As soon as he entered this huge street, Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. Most of the warriors walking on this street were heavenly masters, and there were even Emperor Realm experts. However, there were still relatively few Emperor Realm experts. Occasionally, there would be a few who would pass through the crowd. Most of the stalls on the street were 4 venerable realm warriors. Looking around, Zhuowen hadn't found any Emperor Realm experts setting up stalls here. However, after thinking about it, Emperor Realm experts didn't lack spiritual stones and money at all. Very few Emperor Realm experts would set up stalls. However, there were always exceptions. Perhaps some Emperor Realm experts needed spiritual stones urgently, so they might set up stalls temporarily to sell treasures. Of course, such experts would easily attract the attention of many warriors if they set up stalls. Moreover, they wouldn't set up stalls for too long. After selling their goods, they would leave. Therefore, it wasn't common to encounter such experts setting up stalls. Zhuowen naturally wouldn't deliberately look for Emperor Realm expert stalls. Instead, he followed the crowd and constantly looked at the stalls on both sides. If he saw something good, Zhuowen naturally wouldn't let it go. After all, he was now rich. There's an Emperor Realm expert setting up a stall there. Let's go and take a look. Even if it's useless to an Emperor Realm expert, it might be a treasure to us. What? An Emperor Realm expert setting up a stall? This is the first time in half a year. I haven't seen an Emperor Realm expert setting up a stall in this ancient city for a long time. Suddenly, there was a commotion not far ahead. Then, many warriors who were walking leisurely on the street hurriedly walked forward and surrounded the central stall a few hundred meters ahead. The stall was also extraordinary. There was a faint vision above it, but this vision was suppressed by someone. Zhuowen knew that only an Emperor Realm expert could produce a vision in one's body. Obviously, the owner of this vision was indeed an Emperor Realm expert. Interesting. Let's go and take a look. His eyes flashing, Zhuowen took a step and went deep into the crowd. Soon, he arrived in front of the stall. The stall was very small, only an inch in size. The ground was covered with a checkered cloth. There was a rusty long spear on the stall. Even the tip of the spear seemed to be broken. The body of the spear should originally have patterns, but because of the surrounding rust, the patterns on the body of the spear were covered up. Although the broken spear was very old and rusted beyond recognition, the aura that was faintly revealed from this long spear was quite powerful, faintly having the majesty of an emperor. This is an emperor weapon? And it's a broken emperor weapon? The surrounding cultivators were all extraordinary people. With a single glance, they could see the majestic emperor's aura emanating from the broken spear. This spear had once fought alongside an emperor realm expert. The emperor's aura was the aura left behind by the owner of this spear. At this moment, many of the surrounding warriors were tempted. Although the spear was broken, it was still an emperor weapon. Although it couldn't be used, it could be used for research. As for the owner of this stall, he was a black-clothed man with a cold expression. This man's eyes were extremely sharp, as if they were sharp swords. If a cultivator with a weak mind were to look into his eyes, it was likely that their mind would be injured. This man is very strong. Zhuo Wen narrowed his eyes. In Zhuo Wen's eyes, the black-clothed man in front of him was like an indestructible sword. Just by standing there, he gave Zhuo Wen the illusion that this person was not a person, but an unsheathed sword. This spear has no name. I obtained it by accident. It's an emperor weapon. The price is 1 million upper-grade spirit stones. If you don't want it, you can get lost. The black-clothed man said coldly. He stood in front of the broken spear and his eyes narrowed, no longer paying attention to the surrounding people. Looking at the cold man in front of him, Zhuowen shrugged his shoulders. This man was really overbearing. Although his overbearing way of doing things made many people unhappy, no one dared to refute him because he was an Emperor Realm expert. 1 million upper-grade spirit stones, isn't that too expensive? This price is enough to buy a top-grade Emperor Realm spiritual treasure. Although this spear is an Emperor weapon, it was once an Emperor weapon. Now it's broken to such an extent that it can't be used at all. It's difficult to even repair it. How can you sell it at such a high price? After the cold man stated the price, the crowd quieted down. Many people shook their heads and felt that the price was too high. This broken spear was not worth this price. Zhuowen also shook his head. He also felt that the price was too high. Although the spear was an invincible emperor weapon, it was now broken to such a terrible extent. It was not worth 1 million upper-grade spirit stones. After a moment of silence, a man finally walked out. He was quite old and his hair was white. There was a trace of a smile at the corner of his mouth. Moreover, what attracted people's attention was that his aura was as vast as the sea. He was extremely powerful. He was actually an Emperor Realm expert. This brother, you've also seen this Emperor artifact. The degree of damage is too severe. You're asking for 1 million upper-grade spirit stones. How about this? You can reduce the price to 500,000 and I'll buy this broken Emperor weapon. The man smiled and said. The surrounding people nodded. This man was also an Emperor Realm expert. The cold man should give him face. Unfortunately, the cold man only glanced at the middle-aged man indifferently and spat out a word, "Get lost." Once the words came out, the crowd quieted down again. The middle-aged man with white hair was also stunned. Immediately, his face turned red and he said in a low voice, "Aren't you too arrogant? We're both Emperor Realm experts. Are you not going to give me face at all? You're just a first-level Emperor Realm trash. How dare you say that in front of me? Get lost or die." The cold-looking man slowly stood up. His sharp eyes actually surged with strands of terrifying sword light. At this moment, the man was like an unsheathed sharp sword, peerless and insufferably arrogant, as if he could cut through everything. Deng deng deng. Under this sharp aura, the surrounding cultivators all took dozens of steps back. The middle-aged man was in a miserable state. He fell flat on his face and then slid a few hundred meters away. Hooah! An uproar suddenly resounded. When everyone's eyes gathered on the cold man again, their expressions finally changed. The middle-aged man with white hair was a first-level Emperor Realm expert. However, under the cold man's aura, he fell flat on his face. Wasn't this too unbelievable? Is this man a high-level Emperor Realm expert? My god, there's actually a high-level Emperor Realm expert in the desolate ancient city. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.